This kid works as a cameraman because let's face it, we all know the cameraman never dies. In this world, monsters are constantly trying to wipe out humanity, and hunters are the heroes saving the day 24/7. Streaming your job to the world has become the norm since the system grants more power based on your viewer count. Since our protagonist has zero talent for fighting or even defending himself, becoming a cameraman was his best bet for survival. This brainless meathead was planning to dive into a dungeon way above his pay grade. All of that just to impress a girl and look cool for the cameras. The MC, Gangshik, warned him that there were no other hunters nearby to help if things went south. But the hunter was clearly thinking with his junk instead of his brain and pointed out his target, an any simian. So off they went. When the dude unleashed his fire magic, despite the massive explosion, something felt off. The girl starts celebrating the win, and the Mohawk head actually thinks he pulled it off. Our MC might not have any awakened talents, but he's the only one with a functioning brain. The monkey monster jumped straight out of the flames and attacked. The hunter dodged and managed to save the girl too, but that's not enough. If his strongest attack failed, the only option left is becoming monster snacks, and it's all going to be streamed live. The total prick bolted and left the girl behind as bait, hoping he'd have a chance to escape. The monster just slapped that snack aside and sent her flying, because he's way more interested in the tough meat of our mohawk-headed friend. This muscular piece of trash ran straight toward the cameraman to turn him into a second bait. Everyone watching saw exactly how pathetic this rank F hunter really is. Even without powers, our boy wasn't about to give up, and he dodged the attack like a pro. The protagonist jumped and evaded another strike. It was incredible. He has no official talent, but right now he could feel a hidden power surging inside him. The monster lunged again, but with his newly discovered speed, the MC dodged once more. Then he remembered something. Gangshik always carries a few tools with him. That loser hunter used to make him do all the heavy lifting and digging, so he actually has a shovel on him. With no other choice, the MC leaped with the shovel and tried to bash the monster's head, but it didn't work. This monkey is literally rock hard. The monster flew into a rage and charged at Gangshik. The MC dodged yet another attack and took the chance to roll behind the beast to unleash a secret forbidden technique. See, no creature on Earth is durable in that specific spot. With all his might, he rammed the shovel straight through the monster's back door. The creature screamed in pure despair and agony. He's a male, and he's definitely never been through anything that penetrating before. Boiling with rage, the creature turned around to attack, not even noticing the spear in the MC's hand. Well, actually, it's just the sharp end of a tripod, and now he's plunged it right into the monster's gut, finishing him off for good. Our boy didn't even realize it, but everything he did was being broadcast live. He proved to everyone that the cameraman really never dies, and now everyone wants to know who this hunter is. He was incredible. Even so, his body is completely exhausted, and he can barely breathe. That's why he throws himself to the ground, trying to catch his breath. Lying there, he still can't believe what just happened, and it even feels like he suddenly got stronger. Suddenly, a new notification appears saying that a certain god was pleased. Several other windows pop up, talking about these gods. Then the protagonist realizes that various gods were gathering to watch him. The monster that had been defeated is called any simian, and its main traits are being gigantic and extremely tough. Meanwhile, the live stream was blowing up, and everyone watching was amazed at what they had just seen. Viewers noticed how quickly the number of people watching was going up. That made others curious to see what was going on and open the live stream too. When a young girl did so, she realized people were talking about a cameraman who had taken down a monster. This news was spreading among friends, and the number of viewers kept growing. Meanwhile, unaware of what was happening, Gang was still lying down, recovering his energy. When he gets up to grab his camera, he's speechless at what he sees. He had no idea he was recording, and can't believe the reactions of the people who were watching. At that moment, it hits him that the whole fight with the monster had been broadcast live. When he turns his attention back to the camera, he's stunned. The number of viewers is 8,321, which is 3 times more than usual. Above his head, a new notification appears. It says the number of gods watching had dropped to 3, and Gang realizes that the more gods were watching, the stronger he became. However, for now, he decides to focus more on his rising internet popularity. He decides to talk to them live, right there on the spot. The viewers were impressed and showed in the comments how amazing they thought our hero was. Reading the comments, Gang finds out that the traitor lamb got what he deserved. He's also informed that a rescue squad was already on its way there, which calms him down. As for Lamb, things didn't go well. He was caught and arrested as soon as he arrived in Seoul. That happened because everyone had been watching Liv and saw him running away, leaving the others behind. Some in the comments even ask about Hae-Newell, wanting to know if she was still alive. With that, our protagonist remembers the girl and starts to worry too. He tries to recall the last place where she was attacked. When he turns around, he spots the young woman still lying on the ground unconscious and wonders if he should go to her. Right then, something makes Gang angry. The gods notify him that they're getting impatient and want him to go check on the girl right away. As he gets closer to her, some comment that they're going to leave, as the scene was a bit too heady. Our hero even considers stopping the recording, since it wasn't something appropriate to show online. Looking at her, he wonders if the girl was lifeless, but she didn't seem to have any visible wounds. While analyzing the girl, the gods continued to show impatience through notifications. At that moment, Gang hears something approaching. As he turns around, he sees the rescue team, so he figures it's best to let them examine the girl. Right afterward, the vehicle stops and the door opens for the rescuers to jump out. One of them runs ahead to try to save the girl. Approaching our hero, the rescuer asks if he is the one called Gang, and he says yes. As they greet each other, the man asks if he really managed to defeat the monster on his own. Gang says he did, but explains that it was all just a matter of luck. In response, the rescuer tells him he's being humble for saying that and asks him not to interfere with the rescue. Some team members walk toward the creature's body with weapons in hand. The protagonist takes the chance to record everything and narrate what's happening. One of them checks and says the creature is still alive, so they should begin the next stage. Meanwhile, another professional is examining the girl and asks his colleagues to bring a stretcher. Noticing that new viewers are joining the live stream, Gang decides to explain everything that's going on. While the men are cutting into the monster's body, he explains that this had to be done to extract what was inside it. After opening the exact spot, the professionals announce they found the item. It's the core that all creatures have. If it wasn't removed, it would come back to life. One subscriber questions if there's really anyone there who didn't know that obvious information. Looking to the other side, Gang feels relieved to see that they're taking care of the girl Haenul. But something happens as the man had collapsed to the ground. New God notifications pop up. The girl's body was overtaken by something purple, as if she were possessed. That same thing enters the rescuer's body too. This new monster takes shape, but it's even uglier than the other one, with a horrendous appearance. Facing that, the protagonist wonders if it's really what he thinks it is. This monster is slimy and slowly starts to devour the nearby bodies. Looking closer, Gang concludes that this creature is from the underdog species. This monster is also just 1-star ranked, but it controls toxins and poisons that can easily kill humans. It was already doing that to the poor girl, hiding inside her wounded body and poisoning the people who came to help. Realizing what it is, the other workers question when exactly this monster hid there. Since there was nothing they could do at that moment, they decide it's best to grab the core and flee. The leader tells his subordinate not to panic and to follow the manual. So just as instructed, the young man goes to the spot and retrieves the core to store it. But unlike them, our protagonist wasn't going to give up. He opens his backpack, remembering something that might save them. With what he needs in hand, he comes up with a plan and believes it's enough to take down the creature. The item is a kind of blowtorch, but way more powerful. As soon as he gets it ready, our hero points it at the monster and fires it up. The flames begin to surround the beast, and the protagonist takes the opportunity to mock it, saying he had its favorite item. With that, the monster starts to panic. However, the rescuers call Gang's attention, saying they needed to recover the bodies intact for the families. Still, Gang doesn't let it go and responds that first and foremost, he won't let them lose their lives. He quickly runs toward the emergency vehicle. From inside, he grabs a fire extinguisher. He's confident in what he's doing and knows this species doesn't kill its prey quickly. Before heading into the fight, the young man adjusts the camera onto his own body so everything can be captured in real time. Then, with the extinguisher in hand, he runs into the flames. Everything Gang did was calculated, and the big difference between him and everyone else was that he placed no value on his own life. That's why he would take this opportunity to try and become a chosen one. Watching everything through the cameras, the chosen ones are impressed at how Gang was giving it his all. While running through the flames and purple smoke, Gang faced the slimy monster that attacked relentlessly. In the middle of the chaos, he thought he would never make it as a cameraman and would fail in getting revenge on the creature. With the extinguisher in his hands and a determined look in his eyes, Gang felt this was his big chance. He shouted that he was going to prove the worth of the weak, the very ones who helped him get this far, and squeezed the extinguisher trigger. Facing the camera, he explained that it might seem crazy to start a fire, but flames weaken the underdogs. He said fire neutralizes the poison, which is those monsters' main weapon, and without it, they become vulnerable. He revealed that he needed the extinguisher to rescue people while the monsters were still weak. He explained that, when cornered, an underdog chooses between fleeing or using the host in one final attempt. With the rescuers on standby, Gang said the monster usually abandons the victim or goes for one last attack. Meanwhile, the monster keeps taking over the girl's body. That's when Gang realizes the monster chose the second option. Haenul writhes on the ground, groaning as if something were suffocating her from the inside. With a serious look, Gang prepares for what's coming. Taken over by the monster, the girl now looks threatening and lets out a terrifying hiss. Facing her, Gang figures the monster thinks it can win even without the poison. Taunting the creature, Gang yells, daring it to attack him. The possessed girl leaps at him. Without hesitation, Gang shouts that he doesn't care if the monster is using the host's body. He strikes the girl and yells that in the end, it was still Lady Haenul there. After the blow, notifications appear and one god comments that it was cruel, with another agreeing. Gang believes he made the best choice, but God says it was just an excuse. Looking at Haenul and the fallen rescuer, Gang wonders if the gods wanted him to end the livestream earlier. Without thinking much, he lifts the unconscious rescuer onto his shoulders. Heading to the van, the other two team members watch as he carries their colleague. People watch through their screens and a woman comments that the cameraman saved the rescuer. Sweating, Gang says he's still alive because the fire neutralized the poison just in time. Seeing the fire grow, Gang realizes he needs to get out of there as soon as possible. While carrying the colleague, he's surprised to see Haenul getting up behind him. With glowing purple eyes, the girl groans and Gang understands the monster is still inside her. He aims the extinguisher and thinks one more hit might do the job. As the hissing grows louder, a scream escapes Gang as he notices something strange. A dark energy begins to pour from Han-Nul's body, accompanied by a cry of pain. The monster, now in a slimy form, exits her body and materializes in the air. Relieved, Gang realizes the creature chose to escape into the sky. Rescuers rush to help. One grabs Han-Nul while Gang still carries the colleague. With everything under control, they place Han-Nul on a stretcher and begin putting out the fire. Gang narrates to the live that the underdogs escaped, but no one was in critical condition. Smiling at the camera, he thanks everyone who watched the stream. He announces that from that day on, Lam's live streams are officially canceled. As he says goodbye, the screen fills with supportive comments and interview requests. At the hospital, Gang keeps recording as comments continue to roll in. Two people mention a link that was posted, but they find the site it led to strange. Smiling and taking a selfie, Gang tells Lam he'll take good care of the audience he left behind. On the live stream, the protagonist excitedly announces the start of a new broadcast. In the Monster Encyclopedia, it shows that Underdogs is an elemental being, uses empathy, and fears fire. During the live stream, Gang introduces himself as Mr. Cameraman and says everything is about to begin. With 8,722 viewers, he thinks it was worth risking himself for that number. In front of the hospital, he comments that the test came back normal, which surprises the viewers. Outside the hospital, he believes he's only okay because of the power of the gods who want more action. Seeing reporters at the exit, Gang sighs and thinks of how to avoid them again. Surrounded by journalists asking how he won without being superhuman, Gang replies shyly. Hiding in the hospital, Gang informs the live that the reporters followed him and that he'll return once he can get out of there. In a hurry, Gang runs through the streets, trying to get home quickly. But moments later, he stops in shock, unable to believe what he's seeing. Before his eyes is his house destroyed, and he mourns the loss. Angry, he mutters and realizes monsters had been there. The scene shifts to a chaotic street with people fleeing and rescuers everywhere. A medic asks if Gang has regained consciousness. Sitting and exhausted, Gang feels the weight of the attacks that hit his neighborhood. Two girls cry, and one god yawns while another wants to know if there's going to be a fight. One god leaves impatiently, leaving only three behind, making Gang realize he can't let this continue. Feeling his strength fading, he opens his backpack and decides to fight to get their attention. He remembers Siegfried, who became immortal after slaying a red dragon. He also thinks of Perseus, riding Pegasus after defeating Medusa with divine help. Meanwhile, he watches the sky, where divine notifications keep pouring in. A blonde man approaches, catching his attention among the rubble. With blue eyes, the man stares at Gang as if he recognizes him from somewhere. Gang turns around, surprised to realize who the visitor is. Hanjo Seep points and says he's the cameraman who defeated the Eni Simian. Gang pulls the camera from his backpack, reflecting on being recognized by someone famous. Hanjo Seep smiles at the camera and tells his fans he's found a famous figure. During the break, Gang watches the streamer and notices his professional demeanor. But as soon as the camera is turned off, he changes and calls Gang a manipulator. The blonde tries to talk to Gang, but is ignored. Name and fame don't impress him. Surprised, Hanjo Seep hesitates, unable to believe what he just heard, while Gang stares him down firmly. With a resolute posture, Gang takes control of the situation, leaving the others speechless. Annoyed, Hanjo Seep says he's deluded by fame, even though he has no abilities. Gang replies with irony and points out that Han himself always took long commercial breaks. Left without a comeback, Hanjo Seep turns to his cameraman and demands an eye-catching thumbnail. Meanwhile, Gang reveals that his live stream was never interrupted. The stream shows the streamer looking lost and reacting badly to the comments. With a slight smile, Gang extends his hand, as if thanking the audience. Upon seeing the tablet, Hanjo Seep freezes with an expression of sheer horror. Gang smiles and says this turned into a lesson on streamer behavior. His foot glows with blue energy just as a divine notification appears. He understands that results are starting to come little by little. Disoriented, the blonde tries to justify himself, saying his old strategies no longer work. With the camera steady, Gang calmly asks about those strategy guides. The blonde has no answer, while Gang reflects that monsters don't follow human tactics. Hanjo Seep tries to recover, bites his finger, and declares he'll defeat the local monster. Full of arrogance, he tells Gang to back off, saying he'll show what it means to be a professional. With glowing hands, the streamer provokes and talks about the monster that caused so much destruction. Gang wishes him good luck, recognizing that the opponent had talent even if he seemed nervous. As the blonde walks away with his cameraman, Gang decides to go after the creature too. After all, fighting monsters was still the best way to attract the gods' attention. Our hero analyzes the area and deduces where the monster might be hiding, but a strange noise interrupts his thoughts and puts him on alert. Among the rubble, a creature emerges suddenly from the darkness. The beast bares its teeth and growls, ready to attack with full force. Suddenly, an electric shock hits the monster, which screams and writhes in pain. The blonde appears with his hand glowing with energy and laughs at the creature's slowness. Our hero widens his eyes as he notices something above, something the other hasn't seen yet. The monster took no real damage and is already preparing to retaliate. With no time to react, the streamer is struck from behind by a new blow. Hanjo Seep falls to the ground after being hit on the back of the neck and screams in pain. Gang watches and finds it pathetic to see a superhuman fall because of a rock, but he's not surprised. Facing the red-haired monster, Gang remembers the destruction of his home. With the camera steady and a smile on his face, he stares down the monster like a challenge. The creature senses the provocation and bares its teeth in rage. Our hero prepares for the fight, feeling a strength greater than before. He sees a ruined church and thinks about using it as a strategic shelter. Without a second thought, he runs to the church, with the monster right behind him. Elsewhere, Han Jo-seop gets up in pain, clearly embarrassed. Frightened, he turns his head, trying to figure out where the sounds are coming from. Seeing the lit-up church, he runs, thinking Gang is inside. Upon reaching the entrance, he shouts in surprise at what he sees in the temple. Paralyzed, Han Jo-seop can't believe what he's seeing with his own eyes. Gang is standing with the monster's defeated body at his feet near the cross. Even with an injury on his face, he keeps his gaze steady and smiles calmly. Confident, he says maybe he had a little divine help in this fight. The church's facade is shown, with the cross prominently displayed in the scene. A flashback reveals Gang landing a powerful blow on the monster's side. The creature is shown with something embedded in its eye, showing the impact of the strike. The monster staggers, filled with rage and pain from the wound. From behind a pillar, Gang observes, knowing that taking one eye wasn't enough. As he runs toward the church, he analyzes the environment and plans his next move. Upon seeing the cross on the platform, a quick idea pops into his mind. He shouts loudly, drawing the monster's attention, which immediately turns around. Gang jumps from the platform, gripping the cross firmly in his hands. With a precise strike, he hits the creature on the head with the cross. Driven by memories of the destruction, he unleashes his fury upon the enemy. The scene shifts back to Han Jo-seop, still running toward the church. At that moment, he arrives and witnesses the entire scene before him. Shocked, he can't immediately comprehend what he's seeing. Gang stands with the defeated monster beside him and the cross covered in red fluid. With a satisfied look, he thinks that wasn't just luck. Han Jo-seop tries to make sense of everything while Gang watches the live stream's reaction. A chart shows a rise in subscribers and income for the powerless hero. Panting, Gang speaks to the viewers, showing he's still alive. With a calm smile, he thanks them for their support and asks them to keep watching. Notifications from the gods arrive with comments as Han Jo-seop yells in frustration. The blonde tries to justify himself, but Gang questions his overreaction. Pointing a finger, Han Jo-seop challenges Gang to prove who's stronger. Gang is confused by the unexpected proposal and stares at his rival. At that moment, the protagonist feels the streamer's camera seems to be capturing something unusual. With a look of panic, he senses something unbelievable is about to happen. Gang asks if Han Jo-seop wanted to form a duo, but the blonde doesn't seem to like the idea. The streamer tries to cover it up with a smile and invites Gang for a collaboration the following week. Han Jo-seop says it will be a contest with the country's best streamer to see who's the strongest. Our hero smiles and thinks that if even he praises this woman so much, she must really be impressive. The blonde insists, saying Gang must have heard of her, but the protagonist asks him to just say the name. Even the gods show curiosity about her, and her name is revealed as Kim So-yoon. Gang is surprised to hear the name and recognizes the chance to film alongside someone so famous. The scene shifts to the protagonist walking alone down a ruined and deserted road. An old newspaper sticks to Gang's leg as he walks nonstop. Upon arriving, he wonders if this is really the place Han Jo-seop mentioned. The facade of an abandoned and dangerous airport appears, overtaken by debris. Worried, he wonders if this is the right destination or if there was a mistake along the way. This reminds him of when he was a child, lying among ruins, not knowing what to do. Inside the airport, he silently stares at the broken runway through an old window. Behind him, Han Jo-seop calls out urgently, telling him to hurry up. Gang follows, without much excitement, as they pass through an improvised camp. The streamer is surprised by how organized the camp is, beyond his expectations. Up ahead, the blonde approaches Kim, apologizing and blaming Gang for the delay. The woman responds calmly with her back turned, showing no emotion. Gang watches curiously, intrigued by Kim's imposing presence. Soon, he notices she doesn't touch the ground and floats effortlessly. Hovering in the air, Kim introduces herself with authority and full control over her energy. With a steady gaze, she breaks the silence and asks if it's polite to just stare. Not knowing what to do, Gang tries to introduce himself, but she asks not to be called a goddess or Nunam. Kim So-yoon explains the plan, saying it will be intense, 3 days and 2 nights straight. Han Jo-seop is surprised, and Gang also seems to be hearing this for the first time. Confident, Gang says he could handle even 4 days, and she replies that they'll see. He extends his hand, promising he won't let her down during the mission. They shake hands, and Kim warns that she expects more than just words. Divine notifications appear, excited by the handshake and the promise made. 2 days later, the camp is full, with guards watching the main gate. Inside a tent, the team adjusts the equipment, and Gang notices Kim's organization. The streamer wears a military uniform, and Gang wonders if that's common for soldiers. She asks if Gang wants to become a soldier, and he respectfully declines, surprising the blonde. Kim offers him a position directly under her, but Gang says it suits her more than him. She regrets it, saying they'd make a good duo, while the blonde watches jealously. Changing the subject, Kim explains that the airport buff roos are stronger now. She says few people know this, and Han asks if it's a monopoly, but she denies it. So-yoon says they delayed the announcement to investigate, and Gang realizes the investigation is over. She says there are about 100 buff rests, and her team tried to understand more variables. Gang sees the cameraman and thinks about the pressure they must be under with all this. The image of a desperate man trapped behind bars appears, reminding him of the past. Some time ago, Gang was injured, investigating the Buffrus because of Lamb, and nearly lost his life. In the present, he warns everyone to be careful when dealing with those dangerous creatures. Buffrus look like cows, but in groups they become much stronger and harder to eliminate. Han Jo-seop suggests luring them to tire them out and attacking once they're exhausted. Gang asks about the risk, and who's going to be the bait in that strategy. With an arrogant smile, the blonde tells Gang to just watch and suggests ranged attacks. The streamer brags to Kim So-yoon, saying taking down a cow is easy for him. She warns about how hard it is to control the whole situation. Joining forces sounds good, and Kim So-yoon proposes a collaboration, asking if Gang thinks it's difficult. He seems calm and says he's thinking of being the bait and that it's fine by him. Kim attacks a Buffrus with purple energy, showing off her hunting skills. Two people watch the stream, surprised to see Kim So-yoon and the cameraman together. Our hero thanks the viewers and thinks about Kim So-yoon's strategy. Looking at his camera, Gang thinks his streams are unpredictable. With divine notifications, he reflects that the gods want that too. The first point is the buff ability that strengthens others of the same species. Grabbing a shield, he mentions that buffs can stack, making battles unpredictable. The second point is that they grow stronger through territory wars. With a bad feeling, he remembers that bad feelings never fail. Holding the shield, Gang invites the viewers to a hunt in his style. With the shield glowing blue, he charges forward with strength and determination. Meanwhile, Kim So-yoon attacks a Bufferock, and Han Jo-seop reassures the chat. The streamer says that he and Kim So-yoon are veterans and will handle it fine. Two Bufferocks boost their resistance, intelligence, and physical power. They gain fire and electricity resistance, becoming more dangerous. While Kim fights, a giant Bufferock appears, and Han Jo-seop warns the chat. Hiding behind his shield, Gang proposes a challenge to guess the door. He checks his phone and notices the chat is moving too fast to follow. Someone shouts camouflage, and Gang is surprised by the correct answer. He congratulates the winner, Tumbelina, and asks for their info for the prize. With his shield and flashlight, he promises to send a Buffrus horn as a gift. He explains that the monsters grew stronger with buffs while the others were resting. The Buffrus facial structure forces them to look down, and they have astigmatism. Gang reveals that if you cover yourself and approach from the front, you'll be mistaken. Still unproven scientifically, high-tech weapons don't work. Only direct attacks or superpowers can break the core shield. Even though the stream shows a monster without a core, Gang admits it's a bad situation. As Kim and Han fight, they say the key is to hold on as long as possible. Surrounded by Buffrus, Gang realizes retreating would isolate him, and he'd die. Divine notifications show the god's frustration with Gang's capabilities. The protagonist thinks that if he runs, he'll lose his viewers, he must act. A donation notification pops up. A god makes a serious decision, surprising Gang. Confused, he wonders what it is as a fallen monster starts glowing. Holding the shield, Gang looks baffled by the unexpected situation. On stream, it's revealed the donation was a shovel emerging from the monster, shocking everyone. With the shovel in hand, Gang charges a Buffrus and lands a clean hit. The monster's core appears right after the precise strike. He shields himself and keeps striking with the shovel. He shouts angrily for all the monsters to come at him. Surrounded by fallen Buffrus, he stands firm with his shovel and shield. Panting, he thinks if it's this easy for him, it must be even better for the other streamers. Looking at a Buffrus with a colorful aura, he realizes the bonuses are gone and the end is near. Other monsters begin to release their auras at full force. Kim attacks with a fiery explosion while someone screams Colonel. Han Jo-seop freezes a few of them with an ice attack. The girl watches the scene with confidence as the battle rages on. Relieved, Han Jo-seop says reinforcements arrived quickly. They barely made it out. A soldier in tactical gear sees more hunters arriving and thinks it really did look like the end. Holding the shovel, our hero stares at the divine notifications, wondering why the gods act this way. Gang turns his head quickly, as if he heard something. With a surprised look, he tries to understand what that sound was. Hooded hunters are struck by energy blades as someone yells for them to dodge. A creature appears with red eyes and a gem on its forehead. A white monster floats with blades on its arms and legs, asserting its presence. The encyclopedia displays the main characteristics of the Buffrus and their enhancement abilities. The protagonist remembers an unforgettable day from his childhood, coming home excited. His mother welcomed him warmly in the kitchen, preparing his favorite dish, tonkatsu. His little sister ran over smiling to show the new clothes their father had bought. Their father arrived shortly after and gently asked the daughter to be careful not to fall. Gang remembered the ordinary yet precious family he had. A sharp, strange sound interrupted the happy scene, scaring the boy. That day, thousands of swords fell from the sky, hitting people in the street. Everything vanished in an instant and young Gang was left lying alone in the middle of the destruction. Desperate, he tried to wake his little sister, who was unconscious in his arms. The memory of a 5-star monster that had never been killed haunts young Gang's mind. Tima Phantom, an entity he could never forget, returns to his memory, and now, as an adult, Gang faces the danger with fury in his eyes. The white monster is revealed to be Null Blade. With a maniacal smile, Gang laughs, while divine notifications show one god saying goodbye and another pitying him, and the stream chat reacts with confusion. With arms wide open, our hero stares at the Null Blade floating in the burning sky. wondering why he's laughing. A wave of energy rapidly expands. With the shovel glowing on his back, Gang leaps toward the monster, shouting that he's waited for this moment. He charges forward at high speed, leaving a trail of blue energy. With wide eyes, our protagonist notices something shocking. The null blade moves at incredible speed, dodging Gang's attack. A giant blade materializes in the air, spinning with a blue aura, aiming at the monster. The null blade moves the blade swiftly. With a defiant grin, Gang yells that the attack won't work on him and that he won't fall so easily. A beam of light shoots down from the creature to the ground. Cutting lights are launched all over the ground, but our hero dodges them. Determined, he presses forward, saying he's only alive because he wants to take down that bastard. At that moment, he remembers the tragic end of his family at the hands of that monster. With anger on his face, he says he's going to destroy it. Screaming, he heads toward the light coming from the sky. He grabs his shovel and carefully tries to weave between the light beams. He doesn't care about small wounds and says that won't stop him. Despite this monster's intelligence, he makes it clear he won't go down easily. Over the years, he ran countless simulations to face Null Blade. Then, shouting, he says he'll eliminate it no matter the cost. Meanwhile, new notifications arrive showing the gods aren't pleased with this scene. Distracted, one of the light beams grazes the protagonist. Though he manages to dodge in time, his camera gets detached from his arm. It hits the ground and the screen shatters. Even so, Gang doesn't care and remains focused on facing his enemy. He charges forward, knowing he has a chance since it's just one monster. At that moment, the creature hesitates upon seeing the power coming from that shovel. Unsuccessfully, our hero keeps pressing forward, consumed by rage. With Null Blade's defense, his shovel strikes the ground with immense force. Meanwhile, the camera with the broken screen remains aimed at the fight. Despite that, the lid stream continues and the chat is buzzing. With many people watching and the gods interested, our hero feels himself getting stronger. Even the creature seems to notice that something is changing. A blue energy begins to envelop the entire object. Noticing this, the monster makes a massive leap, trying to get away. From the ground, the protagonist asks if it's running away and calls it a damn coward. The viewers realize the monster is retreating and even wonder if it's some kind of prank. Still, Gang doesn't give up and goes after the creature. He tries to keep up, running with all his might. But unexpectedly, Joseph arrives and says he will defeat the monster himself. Irritated, Gang runs to stop him and asks what he thinks he's doing. Acting full of himself, the guy says only he could eliminate the creature because he's a Korean Thor. A ball of energy begins to form above the Null Blade. As a result, lightning expands, engulfing the entire body of the world. Smiling, Joseph asks what the taste of his lightning was. However, judging by the look on his face right after, things didn't go as expected. That lightning strike didn't cause any damage to the massive creature. This worries our hero, since now it's 2 against 1. Because of that, the Null Blade starts increasing the number of swords on its body. More slashing lights are also launched, but Gang manages to dodge. Still running, he grows concerned as things keep getting worse. Very quickly, the monster moves through the sky, while the blonde watches. Seeing that, the protagonist seems to know exactly what's going to happen. The monster fled. Just up ahead, Joseph is still standing still. He looks at his phone, which is streaming the live, and says he's screwed. In the live stream, comments start showing up, and the viewers are not happy with the blonde's actions. With an awkward laugh, he says he thought his move had been perfect. Right in front of him, Gang appears holding the shovel, and Siup, knowing he might get beaten, even trembles. The young man tries to explain, saying they just had bad luck and could try again another time. But our hero doesn't let it slide and immediately punches him right in the face. Gang says that was the worst thing he's ever heard in his life. Because of this outcome, the gods are also displeased, since they wanted to see the fight. The next day, Gang is lying in his hospital bed, recovering, but the image of the Null Blade doesn't leave his mind. He thinks that at least this situation allowed him to gain some power in his shovel. He also saw that he could use it to attack that monster. Recalling part of the fight, he concludes that next time, he'll definitely defeat it. Outside, he hears the cry of a crow and wonders why there's one around so early. In the Monster Encyclopedia, it's shown that the Null Blade is a humanoid monster that can use an undetermined number of swords. The day is quite calm, with everything going normally. After hearing the crow cry in his hospital room, our hero realizes it's a core vocal. In this world, there are 2 types of monsters, some dangerous. But there are also harmless ones that have no interest in humans, like these crows. This bird is a kind of prophetic monster that reveals the luck of a specific area. Each side of the head means something different. The left side signals bad luck, and the right side, good luck. In this case, the cry he was hearing came from the right side of the head. Still in the room, more divine notifications begin to arrive, showing the gods' dissatisfaction. At that moment, Gang remembers where his gear might be. He opens one of the drawers beside him and finds that his tablet and phone are there. Looking at the tablet screen, he wonders what happened while he was being treated. Reading news about the last fight with the monster, he realizes the creature fled south. The whole area where the fight took place was destroyed, showing that the monster wasn't just any ordinary threat. If it weren't for the gods' power, Gang would have been wiped out. And either way, nothing would have gone well with his colleague interfering. Looking at his body, the protagonist notices that even after fighting it, he has no injuries. His entire body, even his feet, is intact. Because of that, he grows worried, wondering where his shovel ended up. One of the gods even comments that he took too long to look for it, which irritates Gang. They're not willing to help our hero. He'll have to search for it himself. Since it won't be resolved now, he adjusts his camera. After starting a live stream, he shows his fans that he's doing fine. Smiling, he notices everyone has a lot of questions. However, he decides to answer the most frequently asked one and says that he is not a superhuman. He also chooses to share his entire past, including the loss of his family. And with that, it becomes clear why, since childhood, he's been determined to wipe out monsters. Then he tells the viewers not to lose hope either. He makes it clear that he's just a normal human, just like everyone watching. At that moment, someone appears at the door and says Gang can't call himself normal. It's one of the doctors, and he apologizes for interrupting the stream. The man says the protagonist can't say he's normal, and that he definitely has something special. Explaining for the viewers, the doctor says the young man is extremely well trained. He also explains that the hospital specializes in monster-related disasters, leaving Gang confused about where this conversation is going. With that guy showing off on camera, our hero is already losing his patience. With a sheepish laugh, the man admits he may have crossed a line, and our hero agrees. However, getting more serious, the doctor says there are many people who want to use him for research. The protagonist is startled, as he didn't expect to hear that. The doctor explains that he ran several tests on him while he was asleep. Although he seems like a normal human, other people in the government still want to study him further. Neither the gods nor Gang seem pleased to hear this. He decides to change the subject and asks if the man had seen his shovel, and he says it was sent to a research lab. That makes our hero really angry, because instead of rewarding him, they took his shovel. Next, a doctor says he still has more things to reveal. With a look, he says he found something unusual in the protagonist's body. This grabs the attention of the young ones, who ask what it is. Then, the man tosses an item into our hero's hands, who looks confused. Looking at it, he asks if that object is a refined core. This core is the basis of one, and the people who can use it are called supernaturals. He remembers when he was tested as a child, but it didn't work for him. A person who can use it becomes bonded to the core of a monster that matches them, and can only use that one. They can't switch cores to try using powers that don't match. The doctor explains that the protagonist wasn't compatible with any, which might mean a compatible monster hasn't been eliminated yet. Looking at the young man, he asks if something like that doesn't interest him, but Gang thinks it's just false hope. Even if it's possible, he's not that interested in having superpowers just to defeat Null Blade. And right after, he changes the subject, asking if he can be discharged. The doctor says yes, his body is fine, but he should come back within a month. While getting dressed, our hero grows suspicious and wonders why this man is trying so hard for him. In response, the man says he realized how much potential Gang has, but the young man isn't interested. Scratching his head, the researcher says it's a shame and asks him to wait a moment. He looks at a shovel leaning nearby and asks if that wasn't the one he was looking for. That leaves the protagonist confused, because there was nothing there just moments ago. From the comments between the gods, it was them who brought it back. With the shovel resting on his shoulder, the protagonist says he'll return in a month. Later, we see the center of operations. There stands a large building, which is the Korean branch of the monster office. Our hero is heading toward the entrance of that building. He was already familiar with the place, since he used to go there often on behalf of his former boss to collect rewards. Things like monster bones and hides can be turned into other hunting equipment. So since it was profitable, he was going there to collect what was rightfully his. Reaching the front desk, where the receptionist looks confused, he asks for his reward. When she realizes he's the guy from the camera, the young woman is stunned. The others nearby hear that too and want to know who he is. With nothing to fear, the protagonist lifts his head, showing that he's that person. Everyone there gathers and starts pointing at Gang. They're confused because he looks like such a normal guy to have fought monsters. Already used to those reactions, he confirms that he really is the cameraman. Awkwardly, the young receptionist asks how she can help. Once again, our hero says he's there to collect his share for his recent hunt. The gods keep commenting how bored they are, but Gang can't do anything about it. One of the masked men places a hand on our hero's shoulder and asks him to turn around. They say they can't believe a regular person could drive away Null Blade. Already out of patience, Gang decides it's better not to respond to those annoying guys, so he grabs his phone and starts recording. Still recording, he asks why those guys are being so suspicious. Immediately, the masked man asks him to put the camera away, but Gang insists he repeat what he said earlier. Realizing they wouldn't say anything on camera, our hero turns back forward. He was in a live stream, and showing the office, he says he's there to collect his rewards. The receptionist hands him a sheet and says that was his share. But when he looks at the amount listed, Gang is completely dissatisfied. With a serious expression, he asks if the young woman knew how many monsters he had taken down. The girl doesn't know what to say, and the protagonist apologizes for complaining to her. With the live stream running, he takes the opportunity to tell his followers that his reward wasn't fair. He shows his shovel and says it's not even on the list, revealing they wanted to take it from him. One of the viewers starts translating what our hero is saying into other languages. With that, many people comment that it's clearly unfair. At that moment, a man arrives, exhausted from running, apologizing and saying he's the manager. He explains that the reward is small because most of it was sent to the missing hunters. Then he tries to make it clear that no one did anything suspicious. It was all for necessary cause. Very angry and recording the scene, Gang says it wasn't fair to take from his share to give to others. The manager explains that he asked for permission from the other two who fought alongside him, but the protagonist says they barely even know each other. Sweating nervously, the manager wonders what to do since this could ruin his career. Our hero keeps pressuring him to explain everything on camera. At that moment, men in military uniforms arrive and ask what he's doing there. As a sign of respect, the manager greets the man called Jin Chang. Feeling very important, the man yells at the protagonist to stop making a scene. Everyone else there agrees and starts to cheer. The gods also give their opinion, and Gang says he already has a headache from so much talking. This soldier is a pure hunter, but his abilities are basic. The respect everyone has for him is only because he's part of the older generation that fought during the monster invasion. He also led the new generation so the past wouldn't repeat itself. Approaching the man, our hero asks what his problem is. Shouting, this hunter says he should show more respect, that everyone is alive thanks to him. But our hero couldn't care less and laughs right in his face. With a vengeful look, Gang says that on the day his family was wiped out, no one helped. Looking at them both, he continues and says that, in truth, the government had missiles pointed right at his neighborhood. Back then, among the monsters that showed up, the government decided to strike everything at once with a single blow. Because of that, everything in the area, including the protagonist's home, was completely destroyed. Even so, the ones who should have been eliminated didn't suffer a single scratch. He still remembers fighting tons of them. He's convinced he can win even if it's 1 against 1. After saying all this, Gang asks the old man not to interfere. In response, the elder says that even though he understands, he couldn't just stand by. That's because he knows what was done in the past was wrong, but he won't let it happen again. Hearing this, the protagonist says the old man is mistaken. He's not a hunter, just a regular person. When he hears that, the soldier is shocked because he knew his hero had fought the null blade. Ready to leave, Gang says he's just going to take the shovel and a buff rust horn and doesn't want anyone trying anything funny with him. At that moment, the manager seems impressed by something he notices. Looking at the shovel in the backpack, he calls it Mosu and asks what it's doing there. Turns out they had taken it earlier and had named it after a great warrior from the past. Looking at him, the protagonist asks if there's a problem, since he's staring at him like that. Terrified, the manager realizes Gang might know they had taken it before. Someone calls the man's phone. Our hero uses the moment to head out, and the manager runs after him, asking him to wait. The man says his boss wants to meet him personally and will also bring his full reward. The gods remain impatient, eager for more adventures, and Gang, out of patience, tells them to wait. From a distance, our hero hears someone calling his name. A man, clearly agitated, arrives pushing others out of his way. Grinding his teeth, he makes his rage very clear. As he finally reaches the front, we realize it's his former boss, Lamb. With this opportunity right in front of him, our protagonist already thinks about activating the stream. They head outside to face each other. On the broadcast, the musclehead makes it clear how unhappy he is with his former camera assistant. Meanwhile, our hero is excited about it. The gods were also eager to see something happen. Nervously, Lamb says there's no denying Gang fought monsters, since it was live-streamed. However, he points at the shovel and says it must have all been thanks to it. The others who are there watching believe what he says and agree that must be it. Even so, the protagonist couldn't care less and asks what the problem with that would be. With a defiant look, he questions if Lamb came all the way there just to say that. Getting closer and closer to the buff guy, our hero says he sure had guts to come up to him. The man tries to play it cool, but inside he's wondering if that's really the same guy he knew before. He even recalls some moments from the string and questions if all that was just because of the shovel. Pointing his item at the bulk, Gang asks him in what way he'd prefer to be sent to hell. Terrified, he pleads with our hero not to come any closer or else he'll fight back. Still, the protagonist doesn't care at all, and even brings up the time the guy ran off alone. Len tries to explain himself and says he was sentenced, mumbling about the fine he had to pay. He also says he's now being forced into an arranged marriage with someone he doesn't even know. Hearing all that nonsense, our hero sighs and says the guy really is hopeless. Beating his chest, Lamb, despite everything, says that he's innocent. The people who watched the stream comment on the rumors that had already been spreading. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps getting closer, holding his phone. He sets the item down on a stand and calls out his ex-boss for a fight. To keep things fair, he says he won't use his shovel, but Lamb can't use his core either. With that move, it seems the gods were enjoying it, and the viewer count even went up. On the other side, the buff guy complains about fighting without his core and tells our hero to use his powers too. That makes Gang furious, knowing the coward only said that because he knows Gang has no powers. But deep down, Lamb was trembling with fear because without his core, he was nothing. In the end, they decide the buff guy can use his core, while our hero will use nothing. Even so, the protagonist is confident that he can win. With his hands covered in flames, Lamb believes this will be the end of our hero. He keeps his face focused, aiming carefully. After gathering all his energy into one hand, he prepares to finish it. He hurls all that fire at the protagonist, who just stands still on the other side. What the buff guy didn't expect is that our hero already knew his moves well. So with ease, Gang dodges the fire. Lamb didn't see that coming and even wonders how the guy managed it. With a wicked laugh, he says he won't give up and that this is just the beginning. He fires more flames, this time reaching a bit farther. The fire ends up surrounding our protagonist, who becomes tense. With that impact, a huge explosion erupts. Lamb takes the chance to mock him, saying that in the end, he was just his cameraman. What he didn't expect is that Gang would leap straight out of the flames toward him. Gang says he had to humiliate himself for 3 years following that scumbag, and as the buff guy starts to panic, Gang makes it clear he knows all his moves. With that, he lands a punch straight to Lamb's face. The impact is so strong it even knocks out a few of his teeth. All of this is still being streamed live, and the viewers are amazed. The gods are excited, and it becomes clear to the protagonist that it was thanks to them that he won. With a single punch, Lamb is sent flying. After hitting the ground, he's left motionless, arms and legs spread out. Gang comments about his ex-boss' arranged marriage, and looking at his wrecked face, he says that if he finds out Lamb had surgery, he'll hunt him down. In the background, the others who witnessed it in person are confused about how a normal guy beat a supernatural. Looking into the camera, our hero says he taught Lamb a lesson. Suddenly, a few black feathers fall toward him. When he turns to the side, he notices a bird has landed on his shoulder. Startled, Gang starts yelling, asking what they were. He wonders why they're there and guesses they must be babies because of their size. With one asking for affection and another chirping, the protagonist thinks it's a sign of luck. Because of that, Gang believes he should follow them wherever they go, and that they be better than gods. Behind a tree, the manager watches everything and is impressed by what he saw. On top of that, he's curious about how the young man managed to attract the crows. So determined, the man begins thinking of a way to keep him around. Then he approaches the protagonist saying he has something to say. Our hero doesn't welcome him warmly and tells him to just spit it out. Awkwardly, the manager explains that the office had no intention of mistreating him. He says the incident with the shovel was a mistake and asks the young man to calm down. Since the protagonist doesn't listen, the man shouts, asking them to wait. He says he heard that Gang has been staying in hot spring restrooms at night and offers him a place to live. However, for our hero, money wasn't the issue. He says he only came there because he needed the horn to send to a follower. As our hero keeps walking, the short man keeps following him, saying he could help if he ever needed anything. The man even starts sweating, realizing he's getting no response. Looking at our hero, he begs him to accept the house, saying he wants nothing in return. Suddenly, those monsters start ramming the dam gate with their horns. If they keep doing that, the dam will collapse, so some soldiers try to stop them. The protagonist, still recording everything, says it's all happening because Lamb got close to the gate. So he runs alongside the birds, determined to rescue those left outside. The people watching the livestream keep following the hunters trying to stop the monsters. The muscular guy is still lying on the ground, emotional for still being alive. But when he looks up, he panics. More pigs were approaching, so he had to hurry and get into the shelter. Hearing a scream, Gang looks up. He realizes that his former boss had already been caught again. Dangling by the claws, he screams for Gang to save him. With a mighty leap, the protagonist yells for Lamb to brace for landing. Then with a single blow, Gang cuts off one of the monster's feet. From up high, Lamb is released, falling straight to the ground. The protagonist also lands without injury, unlike Lamb, who hits the ground face first. Luckily for him, he didn't break any bones because he landed on top of a monster lying there. Missing one of its legs, the pig still in the air becomes furious. Elsewhere, near the shelter, Gang notices there are still civilians outside, and from the looks of it, they wouldn't be going in and were in serious danger. While all that unfolds, the gods continue watching. At that moment, the furious monster charges straight at Gang, but he quickly figures out he can use this to his advantage. One of the boys outside looks back and gets scared. Turns out the protagonist is running while leading one of the monsters right toward them. Gang yells for everyone to get out of the way. Panicking, they all run so they don't get hit. The monster, still filled with rage, stays locked on its path straight ahead. When it gets close to the walls, the protagonist dodges, letting the pig crash right into it. People quickly realize the beast managed to smash the entire entrance. Our hero seizes the moment to point ahead and shout for everyone to go inside. One of the government workers starts arguing with the protagonist, asking what he thinks he's doing. But our Cyril has no patience left and grabs the man by the collar. Gang tells him that instead of whining, he should help others save themselves. He orders the men there to gather the other hunters. That's because, given the size of those monsters, they could only enter one at a time. So the men agree and say that if they're facing one at a time, they could try. With that, all the hunters gather at the entrance to take down any monster that came through. The protagonist feels confident, knowing these people can handle it. As for the rest up in the skies, he'll deal with them himself. A mother and her child were left behind and were about to be attacked. Fortunately, our hero arrives in time and manages to slash the pig's wings. The viewers even comment that they're really enjoying Gang's heroism. That reminds the protagonist of the Null Blade, whom he desperately wants to eliminate. He runs, unwilling to waste time, so he can earn more followers and grow strong enough to defeat him. The people witnessing it all in person would see his full display of heroism. That way, the news would spread among the public, making them even bigger fans of Gang, so he protects them, knowing they will contribute to his growing strength. More monsters keep coming, and with his shovel, the protagonist cuts them down one by one. After finishing off another one of the beasts, he figures most of them must already be taken care of. That's when he hears someone calling his name. It's that mother and her child, thanking him for saving them. Others who were there also mentioned how important it was that he had breached the entrance. Gang replied that he was glad no one had been seriously injured. Before he knew it, one of the little birds started singing. Once again, the one crying was the left head. That was a sign something bad was about to happen, and soon one of the monsters smashed through the wall behind him. Realizing it, our hero couldn't understand how that even happened. He quickly tried to think of something he could do, but there was no time to react. One of the claws ended up slashing his chest. With his hand on the wound, he muttered in pain, but he couldn't stay still any longer, so he grabbed his shovel and moved forward. He tried to strike the creature with his tool, but it dodged. That left the protagonist stunned, as he hadn't expected that. As he fought, he realized this monster was different from the others. Looking at that horrid face, he figured it must be the leader of them all. the creature flew up to strike again. It charged with its horns, aiming to pierce our hero, but he managed to block it. With one hand, he held onto those horns. With the other, he held his shovel and tried to stab it. After having one of its eyes pierced, the monster started to scream. Gang, still hanging onto one of the horns, dangled in the air. The beast took off flying aimlessly through the skies. Meanwhile, the protagonist clung on, trying not to fall. Up ahead, there was a hole the boar seemed to be flying into. Our hero was shocked to see this and hoped it wasn't what he was thinking. That hole had multiple layers going downward, and it was straight into that hole the creature fell, crashing violently until it hit the ground. Down there, the entire floor was destroyed, making it impossible to tell where exactly they had landed. Outside, a few murmurs could be heard from people approaching. They wondered if that was an underground cave and if our hero was still alive. At the bottom, in the middle of the rubble, Gang raised his hand. That way he managed to crawl out from under the rocks. However, he was still a bit dizzy and couldn't steady himself. Surprisingly, the live stream was still going and all the viewers kept watching. Unexpectedly, that monster also woke up, sending everything flying. With its claws about to strike the protagonist, the young man thought about what he could do to dodge. But it seemed like his body wasn't moving the way he wanted, thinking it was the end for him, as the creature's claws were right there. But just when he least expected it, someone appeared, leaving Gang confused. A purple light emerged in the area. Looking up, we see it was the young Kim, and with her power, she was controlling the monster. With her eyes locked on our hero, she asked if he was planning to end that alone too. And then he picked up just the shovel again and ran toward the creature. Still channeling her power through the monster's body, Kim clenched her fist. That caused the boar to start being crushed. The protagonist took advantage of that moment of weakness and sliced the creature in half. This time, the attack worked, and he had a determined look as he finished off the boar. With a smile, the girl said her debt to him was now paid. The protagonist smiled back and agreed. Notifications from the gods started popping up, and Gang tried to understand what they meant. While he was distracted, the girl said she thought he was still hospitalized. In response, our hero said he recovers very fast, and the girl seemed to suspect something. Noticing that, Gang asked what exactly she meant. Turning to the side, the girl said she was talking about her brothers, and that they liked his videos. Gang was impressed and wondered if that was really true. Flying back into the air, Kim said she would take command of the upper levels. Then she soared over the crater that had opened. Gang found that conversation strange. Moving into another area, he found several files proving the association had hidden a lot of things. There were so many capsules that Gang didn't even know where to look. After walking for a while, something caught our hero's attention. There were fallen monsters and rescuers helping the wounded. Seeing that the chaos was over, he decided it was time to end the broadcast. The gods wanted more action and asked if this was another adventure. After so much fighting, Gang was tired, but if it weren't for those gods, he wouldn't have made it this far. So as he walked, he thought about what he could do to satisfy them. But someone caught his attention. A hunter asked if he was the cameraman who kept fighting. He's interested in the shovel that Gang uses, but the protagonist makes it clear that it's not for sale. Letting out a sigh, he reflects that it actually took a while for people to start showing interest. To avoid drawing more attention, Gang considers postponing his next adventure, but the gods don't agree. On another page of the encyclopedia, we learn that pig monsters only get close when they smell trash. To cheer up our hero, the gods make another donation. Gang, who wasn't expecting it, realizes just how much they enjoy a good adventure. Clenching his fist, he tries to feel if there's been any change in his strength. That hunter keeps chasing him, asking to make a good deal. He insists that he'd pay any amount and would make better use of the item. Already irritated, the protagonist says he'll turn on the camera if the guy doesn't stop bothering him. Another person who notices the situation interrupts, asking what's going on there. Commanding respect, he asks the guy if he's trying to take something from our hero. With a look of disapproval, the man says hunters like him tarnish the image of everyone else. The protagonist keeps a suspicious look while watching the two. Apparently, now there are two people interested in his shovel, so he decides he'll have to solve this problem right there. Squatting down, he strikes the item hard into the ground. When he does that, he notices something different. A handle appeared on the end of the item, and Gang wonders if that was the donation. Examining it, he tries to figure out what exactly it's for. Meanwhile, more people arrive, and Gang takes the chance to tell a legend. He says that just like in a certain legend, whoever manages to pull the shovel from the ground will get to keep it. Otherwise, if they fail, they'll have to kneel and admit they were wrong. Upon hearing this, everyone gets excited to give it a try. Gang takes the opportunity to resume his stream. The hunters who are going to participate cover their faces, asking why he's filming. In response, the protagonist says it's to prove they'll do exactly what he said. Realizing he wouldn't back down, one of the guys rolls up his sleeve, showing his muscles, and says he'll go first. He squats and grabs the shovel, putting in all his strength to try and pull it from the ground. However, no matter how hard he tries, the item doesn't budge. The guy wonders why it's so heavy that it won't move. Another hunter steps up and says he's sure he'll manage it. They start telling the first guy to move aside and give them a chance. The protagonist watches closely but remains calm, knowing no one will be able to pull it out. Realizing none of them can do it, they begin claiming there's some trick involved. To prove nothing's rigged, Gang decides to pull it out himself in front of everyone. He finds it strange when the gods start laughing. That makes him think maybe they're playing a prank and won't even let him pull it out. As he walks toward the shovel, one of the gods tells him to pull with a reverent heart, so he steps up and grabs the item to pull. The hunters watching insist that it's all being manipulated. Smiling, our hero says there's no cheating involved and that the shovel is just heady. Now with both hands on the item, he begins counting down before pulling. When the count reaches 3, he effortlessly pulls the shovel out of the ground. The people around are stunned as the ground around them trembles. Even Gang wasn't expecting that and is startled. However, he soon realizes it was because of his shovel. Those two hunters, in disbelief, point at what happened to the ground. It was completely cracked from the force of the pull. Sighing, Gang feels relieved that no one got hurt. Looking at the ring that appeared, he wonders if it was what caused the quake. At that moment, several comments from the gods start distracting him. And meanwhile, those men still keep asking themselves what they just witnessed. So the protagonist thinks about what to do, since he can't seem to get out of the situation. That's why he decides to talk to his viewers and say that an earthquake had happened at that very moment. After that, our hero stores his weapon and thinks about how to get out of there as fast as possible. He bends his arm, and the two little birds land right on it. Some hours later, he decides to head to a convenience store. There he picks up a few items and takes them to the register to pay. He decides he'll eat at one of the tables right there in the store. In one of the nearby seats, Gang notices someone messing with their electronic device. He's relieved that the day is finally over and that it was really intense. Looking up at the sky, he wonders if everything really happened since it's so calm now. He moves his arm and realizes that, in fact, he doesn't even feel pain anymore and is fully recovered. Looking at his food, he reflects that if it weren't for his strength, he would have lost his life a long time ago. Not understanding, he wonders why this opportunity was given to him of all people. Feeling hungry, he opens his instant noodles while thinking. Then he decides it's better to eat first, since he knows he won't find any answers right now. As he eats, the person next to him keeps watching, as if they know him. The guy beside him was watching a video on his tablet about monster behavior. While watching, this couple seems to recognize our hero from the monster attack. They watch Gang eating and are certain that he's the cameraman. They can't even believe that a regular guy like him managed to defeat so many monsters. As so many things are said about the protagonist, they keep watching him closely. They don't seem to believe that a guy like him could have done all that. While he eats, one of the gods sends a notification, and it annoys him. But then he realizes a new god had joined in, so slapping the table, he decides to leave since he can't be seen like that. Excited, our hero says he's going to meet the girl who won the prize. Walking to the location, he passes through the road known for being saved by Kim. With every step, he gets closer to the Monster Association, so the security is extremely tight. As he walks, he finds it a little strange that the prize winner also lives around there. That's because the area is luxurious and only hares live there. At that moment, someone yells at our hero, calling him an intruder. One of the guards tells him not to take another step. With a weapon pointed at his neck, he tries to explain that he's not suspicious. Even so, the guards don't listen and only notice the weapon Gang is holding. The birds on his shoulders get scared and fly off. That startles our hero, who lets out a shout. Because of that suspicious movement, the guards end up shocking him with electricity. When they get closer, they realize it was the famous cameraman. Embarrassed, Gang says he understands their reaction. If it were him, he'd do the same. One of the men ends up revealing he's a big fan. Taking advantage of that, our hero says he has something to take care of there and asks to be let into the buildings. He shows the buffalo horn, leaving the guard impressed. Scratching his head, he explains he came to deliver it to the prize winner. Then the man doesn't mind and leads him to the elevator, saying he can go just this once. Already inside the elevator, Gang is excited for having gotten help from a fan. He keeps going up until he reaches the 8th floor. When he sees the residence, he's left speechless. Everything was shining, and he comments that the place looks like a palace. Stopping in front of room 801, he wonders what kind of person this follower is. The gods tease him, saying there might be romance, but he doesn't believe anything will happen since the girl seemed important. He rings the bell because he wants to get this over with quickly. Then he sets the horn right in front of the door and runs away. At the end of the hallway, he hides, watching everything. The girl steps out asking who it is, while the horn lies on the ground. Our hero, watching, fears she won't notice the gift is there. The girl looks around, but sees no one. That's when she glances down and notices the object. Happy, the girl comments that the cameraman really did send the gift. Looking at her, Gang thinks she chose her username well. That's because she was a very beautiful young woman. Unexpectedly, his birds start making noise. That makes the girl curious, since she heard it too. Really frustrated, Gang tries to cover the bird's beak, but he had to stay very still, since the girl was already heading toward the sound. She looks behind the wall where she thought the noise came from, but it was already empty. Nothing was there. As he runs away, the protagonist wonders why he's fleeing instead of congratulating her. The same guard from earlier sees him running and asks why he's already leaving. In response, our hero asks the man to keep his visit there a secret. Mocking him, the gods comment that it seems the boys never had a girlfriend. Suddenly, halfway through, a force knocks him to the ground. When he looks ahead, he runs into someone he already knew. Standing there was the famous Kim, with a very serious look on her face. As he gets closer, he notices that the guy lying on the ground is his familiar cameraman. Then jokingly, he asks if by any chance she's interested in him, but the girl doesn't like it. and pointing her power at his face, says that she lives there. The protagonist, noticing her irritation, explains that he's only there to deliver the prize. He then asks Kim not to look at him with that angry face. Next, he continues walking, saying he'll be leaving now. Looking at him, the young woman says that Gang doesn't know how to value his own life. In response, he simply says he'll write down what she said. Gang doesn't seem to have enjoyed the lecture he just got, but says he has no choice. In one of his hands, he's still holding the birds, who start screaming. Agitated, they fly up to Gang, lashing out after being squeezed. After they calm down, the protagonist notices their feathers are shinier. Then he remembers it's feeding time, and checking his coat, he realizes the core is missing. Because of that, the gods start sending notifications showing they find it funny. That's when Gang realizes the birds ate the core. They fly off, and Gang gets furious, yelling at them to spit it out. He runs after them, shouting that he won't forgive them. From one of the windows, the follower watches the scene unfold below. Later, an evacuation alert is issued because more pig monsters are approaching. A mother and her son are running toward the gate, which is already closing. Unfortunately, the creature gets there first. Making a terrifying noise, a monster gets ready to attack the woman. It opens its huge mouth, showing its fangs. The woman crouches down, trying to shield her son. As the monster prepares to strike, a bright light appears in the sky. Descending from above is our Gang, who quickly eliminates the monster, saving the family. When the mother looks up, she's shocked by who she sees. She realizes that the one who defeated the creature was the famous Cameraman. From above, the live stream is broadcast in full detail. Pointing to his birds, he asks if they managed to capture everything. His camera was wrapped around the necks of the birds filming from above. The gods complain about something, and the protagonist says they're too impatient. But more monsters arrive, and our hero asks the gods to send their sponsorships. He adjusts his grip to hold his weapon firmly. Then he raises it and gets into position to begin his monster hunting stream. His video is broadcast all over the world. In a meeting room, the manager of the Monster Association shows Gang to his boss. The old man comments that the young man is very strong and still doesn't belong to the office. He also says that Gang has the shovel they previously recovered, and that it must not be ordinary. The irritated manager agrees they should take the shovel as soon as possible. But instead of doing that, the old man suggests they reward Gang for saving the city. At first, his subordinate doesn't seem to understand the plan. Then his boss explains that by doing so, they get closer to the protagonist and reclaim the shovel. The two mention something about a mansion that rejects humans, so the old man asks his subordinate if he doesn't think that would be a great idea. Showing an image of Gang, the old man reflects on what might happen. In another part of the city, the Seoul defense line gathers its squad. The hunters are arriving, and one of them, in a hurry, asks for the gates to be opened quickly. Looking at the soldiers with their weapons, this hunter calls himself lazy. Hearing that, one of the soldiers gets irritated and wants to respond, but his colleague calms him down. He ends by saying that if those bastards didn't have cores, he'd have handled it already. Looking at the hunter, the man complains about finding a monster nest right now. His companion asks what exactly he said, but the man is frightened by something. He says a big dust cloud appeared in a certain area. As our hero walks through the city, he hears news about a monster invasion. The alert sector calls for reinforcements to help in the fight. Meanwhile, Gang arrives at a different location. He looks around the whole city and comments that nothing has changed. 24 hours earlier, Gang had been summoned by the hunter's office. That manager said they wanted to reward him with an even better house. Hearing that kind of talk, Gang immediately gets suspicious. The man concludes that the house would be in Gangnam, a city inhabited only by hunters. For a few moments, our hero wonders if this is really happening. This place was a very prosperous open plains district, which made it an easy target for monsters. But when he heard about the reward, he immediately questioned why they were offering it. While that manager celebrated, the protagonist concluded that they were plotting something. So he decided to accept, just to find out what the plan was. The gods were already excited about the adventure, while Gang just wanted to find his house first, and he took the chance to ask if they had any gifts for the new home. In response, they told the protagonist to keep dreaming. As he walks toward his home, someone recognizes our hero. A blonde guy live streaming says it was a coincidence to run into the famous Cameraman. He pulls him into the broadcast and talks about how amazing he was against the boars. He takes the opportunity to invite Gang to be part of one of his vlogs. The blonde guy keeps showing off while our hero struggles to hold back from punching him. But one comment startles Gang. The guy already knew he was moving. Pointing at his sister, he explains that she's a super fan, so she knows everything about him. The girl gets really shy as she introduces herself to Gang. The two greet each other, and the brother gets furious because she's not keeping the camera steady. Hugging the protagonist, the blonde guy asks if he wants a little help getting around. While holding out his card, he says there's no need to be suspicious, and that Gang shouldn't be harsh with someone who only wants to help. As they walk, our hero comments that the place seems empty, and the blonde guy replies it's because of the monsters. Suddenly someone calls out to him, catching him off guard. He asks his sister to turn off the camera so she doesn't record this. The person arriving is one of the hunters and doesn't look happy with the blonde guy. With a very annoyed expression, the man asks why the kid is still doing that. Trying to change the subject, the blonde guy asks how the hunter's day went. Ignoring the question, the redhead just scolds him, saying he should be hunting instead of filming. The blonde explains that he had an appointment with the protagonist. Getting closer to our hero, the redhead asks if he's into clowning around too. He asks to see his hunter ID, but Gang refuses to back down. Then the man starts mocking our hero, saying he's weak. Smiling, he said the protagonist hadn't faced any real monsters yet. Then he points a knife at Gang's neck to intimidate him. But as expected, our hero calmly looks at the weapon. Still mocking him, the redhead says his group isn't made of clowns like Gang, who only beats small monsters. What he didn't expect was that the protagonist would challenge him. Gang concluded by saying they would now find out who the real clown was. The tension between the two rises as the goofy blonde starts getting scared. One of the female soldiers asks him to calm down. She scolds the redhead, who says he was just playing around with his trainee. But after all that, doesn't the atmosphere feel weird? Both our hero and that arrogant redhead keep staring at each other. After a while, the siblings arrive with our hero at his new house. Making a lame joke, the blonde said that if Gang had defeated Null Blade, he'd be with Kim right now. Out of patience, our hero says that now that he's arrived at his house, the guy can go away. After insisting too much, Gang clenches his teeth and says he'll punch him if he doesn't leave. The guy brushes it off and says it's fine, and that he'll visit another time. After taking a look around the house, the protagonist asks the birds what they think of it. At that moment, one of them shows a worried expression. Then, just as expected, it lets out a loud scream, leaving our hero concerned. It keeps screaming non-stop, showing that something is wrong with the house. Gang already suspected it, and now he had confirmation that this house is not normal. From above, nothing looks out of the ordinary, so our hero starts going up the stairs to see what's there. He tries to be as careful as possible, checking every corner. When he reaches a certain room, he throws the door open. Without hesitation, he enters, ready to strike with his shovel. But in every room he did this, everything seemed normal, and so he continued for a while, finding nothing wrong. After searching so much, he even lay down on the bed to catch his breath. Then he looks at his baby crows, trying to understand them. He tells the birds not to cry so much without a reason, but the little ones don't like their brother and start complaining. Next, our hero gets up and asks the two to take care of the house while he's gone. However, they immediately get agitated and start making noise. Gang tries to calm them down and asks why they're crying like that. Outside, our hero hears an alert saying the defense line was being breached. They announce that all hunters should prepare for battle. Upon hearing this, the gods are already excited to watch, but the protagonist doesn't like it since he didn't have time to rest. Even so, with his shovel, he gets ready. But a loud noise grabs his attention along the way. There was a huge explosion knocking down a wall. Amid the rubble, a rescuer says he found someone. Turns out the place that was destroyed was Gang's house, and the unconscious person was him. Slowly, he regains consciousness, but doesn't know what happened. Another rescuer arrives, asking them to hurry with the evacuation. Getting up, our hero wonders if what happened to him was caused by the monster. Looking around, he realizes his whole house has been destroyed. The two crows are fine and come close to Gang, making noise. Gang notices they were announcing a bad omen. Then he hears the sound of the monster's hooves approaching. The protagonist tries to hide, but the huge creature had already seen him. The monster's mouth fills with a fireball. Not knowing what to do, the protagonist says they should at least introduce themselves first. But of course, the beast ignores him and attacks, sending Gang flying. Trying to hold on, our hero digs his shovel into the ground. With that, he manages to hang onto it to avoid being blown away. Even so, the force is too strong and Gang can't hold out much longer. At that moment, above his head, his birds appear. Gang is confused, wondering why they're there, and he realizes the wind began to shift after that. He recognizes that, even as babies, the crows are very capable. So he takes the opportunity to start running, asking the birds to keep pushing the wind. They quickly get close to the monster with its mouth wide open. It resembles a minotaur and looks very angry. Despite that, the little crows stay focused. Trying to hit them, the minotaur throws a massive fire punch, hitting the ground. Once again, it raises its claws, trying to defeat them. The birds keep flying around, drawing its attention and making it even angrier. Getting closer, our hero taunts the monster, asking what it's looking at. Immediately, the creature turns around. However, the protagonist was already in position, and as soon as it turns, he strikes and runs to the other side. As the creature screams, Gang shoves it, saying it's payback for the destruction of his house. With that, the monster loses balance and falls. Then our hero leaps over the body, ready to deliver the final blow. With all his built-up rage, Gang slams his shovel into the minotaur. When he pulls it out, the tool is covered in red liquid, and Gang still doesn't seem satisfied. Furious, he yells, frustrated over losing his home. He says he had just arrived and that this was unfair. After killing the monster, he takes its core. He takes the chance to offer it to his birds as food, but one of them seems fixated on something, and right after, it starts screaming desperately, leaving Gang worried. In front of them, a large group of minotaurs was arriving. Some people watching from a distance comment that the monsters were heading toward the cameraman. One of them, tired of just recording, closes his camera and says he's done. His friend gets annoyed, asking why he did that, and in response the young man says they should help him. Even so, the guy was scared, since Gang was facing 3 2-star monsters. The boy also says it's not right to steal someone else's prey. Looking at the camera, the man says that if his friend keeps thinking about helping, he wouldn't last long. Then the boy takes his camera back and is left speechless. So the other one orders him to get back to filming immediately. That's because some people really want the protagonist to fail. Back to the battle, our hero keeps giving his best along with the crows. The gods seem to have lost hope that Gang will win and even start saying goodbye. The situation was really tough, and the protagonist was already exhausted. As he runs, he wonders how these gods can be so heartless. So he decides he's going to take care of these monsters one by one. One of them attacks, sending our hero flying. Gang is worried, realizing he's truly in danger. Meanwhile, the gods keep making comments that are no help at all to our hero. After that, one of them scolds the others for their behavior, and Gang thanks him. Yes, he gets a notification saying he'll soon receive a performance bonus. Thinking about how good the shovel he received is, he knows he can't miss this chance. That gets him fired up to keep going. Determined, our hero says he'll go all the way, even if it means losing his life. And right after that, another god starts watching our hero's battle, which makes him happy. Now with more strength, Gang runs toward the Minotaur and tells his birds to block their breathing. As soon as one of the monsters opens its mouth to release fire, the protagonist strikes with his shovel. The heat is intense, and the fireball keeps forming. Our hero feels all that heat, trying to protect himself. Even so, he lets out his battle cry and pushes forward. One of the gods brings in another friend, reaching the max viewer count. Because of that, our hero is blessed with an extra power boost. He looks up, sensing something strange around him. His crows had turned black and white. Even the Minotaur monsters looked the same. That's when he realizes time around him had stopped. Some lights begin to shine in the sky. Then he notices different game dice descending from above. Confused, Gang tries to understand what exactly is going on. The dice float near his head and begin spinning nonstop. Then, a divine notification says he needs to choose a number from the dice. After thinking a bit, the protagonist taps the dice, making a bright light burst out. When the dice finally land, the total is 8. In disbelief, our hero is stunned because that's the exact number he chose. Once again, the light from the sky grows stronger. Looking upward, the protagonist begins to scream in desperation. His shovel also starts glowing, seeming to gain more power. A new notification appears saying Gang has unlocked a temporary chakra. Excited, he says it feels like he's overflowing with power. The monster right in front of him senses the difference in energy. Without delay, the protagonist charges at the monster, piercing it with his weapon. On top of that, his stamina was also boosted, keeping him from getting tired. The other two Minotaurs became enraged and rushed in together. Even so, the protagonist knew how to handle it, even against two monsters at once. With his new power, he could see every move those creatures made, so it became easy to figure out his next steps to defeat them. Holding his powerful shovel, he watches them closely. Once he knows exactly what to do, he charges in, fired up to finish them off. The two creatures continue rushing toward him. Those two guys filming can't believe what they're seeing. The younger one asks his friend to move, because the viewers want to watch. The battle is intense, with Gang taking them all down. After finishing off one more, there's only one left. It starts heating up its mouth, forming a fireball. Shouting, the protagonist says that if the monster stops fighting, it could become his friend. Since the creature doesn't listen, he quickly uses his weapon to slash its neck. Within seconds, the third Minotaur is also on the ground, lifeless. After taking down all three, our hero breathes heavily. He's relieved and also gets a performance bonus. This Minotaur species is known for consuming carbon monoxide and reproducing rapidly. After that, during the fight, our hero believes the other monsters have already been dealt with, since there were more hunters around. The others who watched from afar can't believe he defeated all three by himself. Looking up, he sees that the gods are really excited. The young man who witnessed the whole thing from a distance didn't seem too pleased. He wonders why the protagonist fought like that, since battles are usually handled from afar. Even fighting up close, Gang's blows landed successfully. As our hero walks away, the people behind start whispering. He heads back to where his house was and wonders where to go next. At that moment, he remembers that his birds weren't there. When he goes out to look, he sees they're feeding on the monster's cores. Suddenly, he starts feeling dizzy and wonders if it's from pushing himself too hard. He feels the entire ground shaking and thinks he's about to faint. But what he didn't expect was for the whole ground to be destroyed right then. Something bursts from the ground at high speed, very close to where Gang was. He stands there, mouth wide open, wondering if it was some kind of artillery. This thing was so big he could barely see the end of it, but he wonders if it isn't too big to be artillery. Immediately, hunters gather to put up a barrier around the area. Our hero shouts for them not to do that, warning it might provoke it even more. Some of the hunters are curious to see how much power it'll produce. They're right in front of it, holding small shields, waiting. At that moment, the cannons begin moving from side to side. Panicking, the protagonist yells for everyone to run immediately. From those cannons, fireballs begin launching, one after another. The men with their shields start panicking, realizing they won't be able to defend themselves, so they start running, trying to save their lives. Several bombs are also headed straight for our hero. This time, he doesn't know what to do and feels completely trapped. All he can do is try to shield himself, putting his arms in front of his face. Then he realizes the bombs seem to have passed right through him. The other soldiers keep running, being chased. One of them is already on the verge of being taken out by one of the weapons. His reaction is also to cover his face with his hands. But to his relief, the young Kim is managing to control the bombs. Using her power, she brings the weapons under her control. But she makes it clear to everyone that she won't be able to hold them for long. The other nearby men take the chance to flee, and the clever girl uses her power to turn the weapons around. Now all of them are aimed directly at the artillery itself. Then, using all her strength, she launches them in that direction. Even after being hit by those bombs, nothing on that machine breaks. Kim is confused, not understanding why it's still intact. It's just standing there. and she yells at him to get out quickly. However, what catches his attention is that those bombs didn't attack him. Right after that, the crows fly back toward him. The other soldiers nearby think the artillery's ammunition has run out, so they start walking, thinking it's their chance to finish it off. But then, the cannons begin moving again. The man is frozen, knowing there's no way to defend himself. Running away, they shout that the thing has gone into alert mode. The gods remain focused, watching everything, and tell Gang to touch the artillery. He then concludes that, apparently, the thing doesn't recognize him as a target. On the monitor showing the outside view, the artillery locks onto Gang, and outside, one of his birds begins to squawk, this time signaling something good. From afar, someone yells that the cameraman is approaching the fortress artillery. What's even more confusing to him is that there's still no reaction from it. Our hero also concludes that it really doesn't react to being approached, but he becomes curious and says he'll need to investigate why. At that moment, a small entrance opens, which leaves him puzzled. The gods grow impatient, telling him to go inside already. The camera attached to his birds begins broadcasting. Gang introduces himself and says this is the first time someone will reveal the inside of an artillery. Then, excited, he enters the place. The interior is very dark, and he asks if the viewers can hear that sound. Taking out his phone, he turns on the flashlight to try to see. The place is full of machines and spans several floors. Gang is amazed to be witnessing something like this. The sound he was hearing was coming from those robotic arms. He wonders how exactly he'll explain everything he's seen on the live stream, so he decides to say that this place is now his home. Even the gods are impressed, which makes our hero happy. But as he walks, something seems to catch his attention. Inside, there's a monster chewing on some kind of wood. Confused, the protagonist tries to understand why it's doing that. He's also in front of a house and doesn't get why that's there. This artillery is a monster that transforms buildings into fortresses, capable of massive destruction. To get more views, he presents the house and says he's going in to take a look. As soon as he opens the door, he notices it's identical to the house the government gave him. That makes him wonder if the fortress wants him to live there. Smiling, he says that's probably what's going on. At that moment, the gods announce that the monster was doing this because of Gang's chakra. Curious, our hero asks if it's because of the energy he received earlier. Inside the tower, he tells his subscribers he's going to end the stream there. Then he lies down in bed with his birds to sleep. In the middle of the night, still asleep, he starts to feel something strange. His body begins to undergo drastic changes. The gods were taking the protagonist's performance seriously. In the morning, when our hero wakes up, he's immediately shocked. Right away, he feels his body much stronger and more defined. His body had changed to better receive chakra from the gods. Excited, he says it looks like the gods still have more to give. He then tries to lift something heavy. To his surprise, he easily lifts a box full of missiles. Thrilled, he says his body's condition has completely changed. Already heading out of the tower, he looks at one of the monsters and says he'll leave things in its hands while he's away. The little blue creature just listens silently. With a friendly expression, Gang asks the little creature to take care of his house. Outside, many people wanted to interview him about the previous night, but Gang had no patience and told everyone to get out of the way. Frustrated, he tries to push through the crowd for now. To do that, he uses a bit of his new high-speed power. He was quickly on the other side, leaving some people shocked by his speed. Excited, our hero thinks he didn't imagine he'd be able to get out that easily. Suddenly, he bumps into something. Gang is left speechless as he looks up and even apologizes. It was a huge man blocking the path. The two shake hands to greet each other. Then the big guy says his name is Kang. He says he's a commanding officer and will be straight with the protagonist. He explains that he'll give him good equipment and a leadership position in the squad. Meanwhile, Gang listens in disbelief at what's happening. Getting no reply, the man asks if Gang doesn't want to be part of the Seoul force. The other hunters nearby are impressed by the offer. Our hero keeps thinking, while the others tell him he should accept. Even so, thinking it over, that equipment can't compare to his shovel, and when the day comes to finally face Null Blade, he'll need to be alone. He's very focused on carrying out his plan. So walking past, he thanks him but says he won't accept the offer. Hearing that, the two guys are shocked that he turned it down. As for the big man who made the offer, he laughs. He says the protagonist has the mindset of a true hunter. 1 month earlier, someone steps out of an elevator. The monster office manager was waiting at a table. The young man, surrounded by soldiers, asks them to get straight to the point. Then he asks how much progress has been made. In response, they say everything is going according to the young man's plan, but nothing can go wrong. Showing off his superiority, he says they're just 3-star masters, and it should be easy. One of the men hesitates and says everything will definitely go well, but the old man says their investigation suggests the person in question doesn't seem normal. Unbothered, the young man says he already understood and tells them not to spread the information. That reminds him of certain hunters who also aren't part of the association. Many of them don't cooperate with the government, so that's a problem because they could become a bigger threat than monsters. The man with glasses tells his companion that he must be suffering because of that, and that the old man really shouldn't be like this since the only one responsible is the Yonyu. So the old man agrees to continue without setbacks. Excited, the young man says they should prepare a memorial in advance. Back in the present, our hero's birds are already flying high with the camera. Gang waves to the viewers as he introduces himself. Looking at a notification about possible monsters, he tells the followers about an event from last summer. Soon the comments start flooding in, saying they remember it. As the truck passes by, he explains that around this time, fish monsters always show up. From the comments, we see the followers are excited and asking Gang to hurry. As he keeps walking, the protagonist says he's going to defeat the 3-star one. At that moment, in the middle of the live stream, an explosion suddenly happens. He turns around, trying to see what happened. The truck that had gone in that direction was coming back at full speed, and Gang notices that, from what he saw, something was coming right behind it. It was the monster fish with their huge fangs. 2 hunters in the back of the truck try to fight them off. One of them asks where they came from, since they're from a river that's far away. As more fish approach, they start getting scared because there are too many. Our hero, noticing something unusual, immediately runs in that direction. Seeing all the movement, he thinks of a way to stop them immediately. The truck driver, seeing Gang in front of him, panics. But just at the moment of impact, our hero makes a huge leap. He positions his shovel and begs for it to work. When he lands right in the middle of them and slams his weapon into the ground, everyone is sent flying. Relieved, he says he wasn't sure if the earthquake ability would show up. Even so, he doesn't seem satisfied when he turns around. Many more fish are approaching. Then notifications from the gods begin arriving with their donations, and the shovel starts glowing. While dealing with the monsters, the protagonist is confused. In a situation like this, while he's destroying fish, they want Gang to answer the phone. Irritated, he asks how he's supposed to answer while fighting. Then they ask Gang to look at the handle of his shovel, leaving him confused. The handle looked a bit different and emitted a kind of connection. Right after that, from inside the tower, someone answers the call. Inside the fortress, a red light turns on, making a few noises. Those little creatures that live there are enchanted. With a determined look, one of them makes a certain sound. Then it presses the red button as if it already knew what would happen. In the middle of the battle, the protagonist has no idea what he's doing. Thinking about the phone cable and the shovel, he feels like a fool for falling for this. Trying to buy time, he hides behind a pile of goods. But unexpectedly, an explosion goes off, and he has to run from there. When he realizes it, he sees the artillery was active. The fish that were attacking him are now all dead. That's when he understands the shovel has a function that communicates with the artillery. He believes this partnership will be very helpful in the future. Smiling, Gang figures there must be more fish near the lake. In the truck, the hunters ask what that missile rain was, and they notice that right up ahead, our hero is leaving without even taking the core. Among the exploded monsters, one is still moving, so the one with glasses gets ready to finish it off and make some extra cash. But his friend says they should get out of there right away, feeling a bad omen. As soon as they turn around and leave, the fish keeps staring. Then it starts feeding on its defeated companions. With that, its glowing body starts to change. Its small legs are now bigger and stronger. With a larger horn, this fish monster makes one of its strange sounds. At the bottom of the lake, others of its kind hear the noise. The water becomes turbulent and several jets shoot upward. A swarm of fish emerges from there, following the signal of their leader. Nearby, a few hunters are already in position to stop them, including Kim. She's surprised by the size of these beasts, which is much larger than last year, and there's also a mutant variant she hadn't seen before. So she warns her companions that they first need to take out their leader. That big guy is also in the battle, using his shield. He lets out a battle cry, showing his determination. With that, his shield glows red as if charged with electric light. His defense activates, blocking the fish from getting through. At this point, he calls the rest of the squad to hold their formation. He comments to his teammates that the way these fish are attacking is very different. Looking at his comrades, he knows things could get really bad. So he asks one of them if he knows why the fish have changed. And hearing the answer, the big guy doesn't seem too happy. He looks around and says the situation is not looking good at all. The monsters are getting stronger and faster. They're also managing to defend themselves effortlessly. Another concern is that more mutant variants keep appearing. One of the hunters is already about to be devoured and calls for help. The huge mouth of one of the fish opens wide to chomp him down. He puts his arms in front of his face to try to protect himself. At that moment, young Kim appears to save him as always. The big guy thanks the girl for saving a member of his squad, and she simply replies with a gentle smile. Charging up a power sphere, she says she can't hold off any longer. With that, he gathers several of those monsters into the air. Then he clasps his hands tightly together. That causes all those monsters to explode. The squad leader is impressed, saying that was incredible. But as expected, they realize more trouble is coming. From the nearby lake, more and more fish are on the way. Another man approaches, not believing what he's seeing. Looking at Kim, he says it's pathetic to fight against mutant carps. This man is the same one from the office and keeps mocking the girl. Kang and the big guy get irritated and even curse at the arrogant man. Even so, the man keeps smiling. Then he orders his squad to clear the whole area. In another part of the city, they also prepare rapid-fire rockets. Once the attack is authorized, they are launched, causing explosions. The fish monsters realize weapons are falling from the sky, but there's nothing they can do, and some end up getting hit. The lightning team also gets ready to attack. The incoming fish get confused by all that power. The things that struck the fish begin to glow. That's what was catching the attention of those creatures. Then the lightning chain of that group is activated, electrocuting them. More squad members arrive, and with their electricity powers, they keep attacking the monsters. The squad leader informs on his phone that his group is already handling everything, and repeating it loud for everyone to hear, he says they'll wipe out all the monsters there. However, when the other hunters hear this, they don't like it, since they get paid for that. Even the big guy doesn't seem thrilled with the idea. He calls the young man's attention, saying his name. Yeonyu questions if Kang came there to thank him, but in reality, the man is really angry and grabs him by the shirt. Kang demands to know if that bastard already knew the fish attack was going to happen. With heavy sarcasm, the guy responds that such a thing is absurd. Then he demands an explanation for all the weaponry being so prepared. All the members of his squad were extremely well equipped. Still frowning, Kang says you don't prepare something like that out of nowhere. Shrugging off his hand, Yu replies that it's not a problem for someone as competent as himself. Feeling insulted too, Kim steps in, asking for an explanation. She puts a stop to it and says it's no time to be fighting. One of Yu's soldiers approaches and says they're already ready to attack, so the young man steps away, leaving Kang furious. Yu returns to his team and explains that they'll act just as planned. But fish were still arriving through the water, so as they emerged onto land, they get shocked. However, as they were taken down, more kept advancing into the water. Underwater, the members prepared the electricity ignition. Then they triggered the shock. All the water turned red and started bubbling. With so much electricity, some of the monsters jumped out of the lake. Another part of the team handled the ones emerging from within. That way, both those inside and those outside were hit with powerful shocks. Even so, there were too many of those creatures, and they needed to stay focused, because as the water temperature rose, more of them would appear. Suddenly, one of the mutant carps, this time a giant one, appears. Kim and her friend are stunned, saying that one must be the leader of all the others. The monster opens its mouth, showing its sharp teeth. But that doesn't scare Yu, who simply tells his squad to get ready. Equipped, the members say they're about to activate reinforcements. Once cleared, they launch the slicing chains. They hook into the monster's body. Several parts of it are pierced by those spears. The spectators are confused, wondering what he's planning. It seemed they weren't just buying time. On all their backs was a kind of electricity storage device. Then the leader triggers the lightning shock. Through those chains, the electricity is channeled straight into the monster. Kim is impressed by the strategy and didn't expect Yu to be that strong. From his hand, a massive energy pulse surrounds his body. He points his hand forward to launch it at the creature. Then a kind of laser beam shoots right through the fish monster from side to side. Even his companions had never seen his power this strong before. After that, he tells his men to quickly retrieve the core. Kang, standing nearby, says he doesn't believe there's only one of these creatures. Trying to stay on top, the young man says he already knew that. At that moment, another identical creature appears from the depths of the lake. Turning his head, he says the big guy could just stay quiet and watch. Making a horrendous sound, the creature bares its teeth. Talking to his squad, Yu says the second one appeared just as planned. Meanwhile, he was broadcasting the entire battle. The young MC have trained his team to be powerful. He did all of this so his father would recognize him and see his team as the best. So all his soldiers rush to retrieve the core before the monster regenerates. One of his men calls out to their leader, expressing doubt. In response, Yu says they should finish everything as already agreed. Getting closer, he says they should show that their team is different from the others. This motivates the guy, who calls out to his teammates, saying he'll take the lead. The young leader leaves the area, feeling very lost. With a determined expression, he says he's going to where his father is. Already in the car, someone congratulates him on having a good team. His phone makes a certain noise, and he checks to see what it is. Putting on his headset, he talks to the team leader, asking how things are going. He replies they were already retrieving the first core and almost done with the second. Smiling, he responds by saying that was a true worker. His subordinate agrees and thanks him. They were doing exactly the same with the second creature. As soon as they managed to subdue it, the leader tells them to hurry and grab the core. But as they get closer, they notice the monster is still moving. So they head to the exact spot to extract the core, but the fish is still conscious. One of the soldiers pulls out the core and shows everyone that it's done. But when they least expect it, the creature is right behind them with its mouth wide open. Confused, the guy wonders if there's another monster like this. With no time to escape, the man ends up getting bitten. Furious, the monster charges at the others. Kang and Kim are stunned by what they see. The commander wonders what happened to the core. The monster was standing again, and the soldiers ran in a panic. The two friends, Kang and Kim, realized that this fish had evolved. Its body looked a bit different and had grown even more. Looking at his comrades, the leader orders them to regroup and attack, so they begin to release the chains once more. But this time, the monster manages to dodge most of them. After a few hits, the chains start releasing yellow lightning. The monster's entire body is electrocuted. However, its eyes were different now, more focused. Because of that, the fish immediately counterattacks and takes down several soldiers. Many uniforms and helmets fly through the air, leaving the rest in despair. The creature lunges to bite one of the remaining soldiers. The man sees no way out, thinking this is his end. But a loud noise catches his attention, making him look to the side. Brave Kang had gone there to help him, using his shield. While pushing back, he begs the guy not to give up. He tells the soldier to reorganize the gear and the rest of the group. With wide eyes, the helmeted man is impressed. He's scared and doesn't believe they can take the monster down. Running away, the soldier says he won't become prey. That way, the big guy is left alone, without support. The monster is already ready to deliver one of its devastating punches. In despair, Kang starts screaming. Just in time, he's pulled away, and the punch only hits the ground. Even so, the guy is in shock and keeps screaming. The monster gets angry and opens its mouth, making a strange sound. Right behind, Kim uses her power, trying to move it elsewhere. but she's struggling and wonders if this is what an evolved one's power is like. The creature stays still for a few seconds. Then it starts roaring and manages to move even under the girl's power. Frightened, she realizes the monster tore through her superpowers. Its claws were already right behind her back and about to catch her. She can see everything in slow motion as she's about to be eliminated. But in that instant, our hero arrives with his weapon and slices off the monster's hand. The girl can barely believe she was saved at the last second. With a cheerful smile, the protagonist asks if he's looking at a monster with 2 cores. Facing that giant fish, he says they ended up waiting longer than they should have. And with an excited look, holding his shovel, he says the hunt is about to begin. Waking up a bit dizzy, the big guy wonders how long he's been unconscious. His friend says it was about 5 minutes, but he wants to know what happened. So from there, they watch Gang handling that monster all by himself. While fighting, he notices that his body movements really feel different. Out of all the battles he's had, he can now move better and jump higher. After reaching the healing level he aimed for, he prepares to strike. He manages to slice off one of the monster's arms. The severed limb hits the ground, palm open, with red fluid spilling out. Irritated, he keeps running and says that was enough. The monster could stop now, but apparently, the fish wasn't ready to give up. He grows even angrier, and his power seems to start rising. As he watches, our hero notices the creature was regenerating, and that's because the monster was feeding on others of its own kind. That leads the protagonist to conclude that's why it's getting stronger. To confirm, he grabs his weapon and jumps high into the air. Then he slams it down to trigger one of his earthquakes. Large spears of earth erupt from the ground, surrounding the creature. With wide eyes, the fish looks terrified. Gang gets excited, thinking he had left the monster with no way out. But he's soon shocked by what the creature does next. It breaks through the barriers and keeps devouring more fish. In a matter of seconds, all of its wounds are regenerated. Letting out a yell, our hero wonders what the hell that was now. A hand he had sliced off had now turned into a carp. So he starts thinking about what to do since he's at a serious disadvantage. He decides to run off to a somewhat safer location. On the way, he has to defend himself using his shovel against the attacks. The monster is so fast that the protagonist can't even think straight. Then at that moment, he remembers something. He looks at the ring on his shovel and thinks of contacting the tower. And that's exactly what happens. The little monsters inside the fortress are alerted. They begin communicating among themselves with their cute little sounds. Then they prepare the missiles for launch. Outside, our hero is going through hell. The creature doesn't let up, attacking repeatedly, forcing him to stay on defense. And to make things worse, it starts flailing its spiny parts. Nearly losing his mind, the protagonist doesn't know what else to do, as the regeneration is too fast. From above, his birds are still recording everything with the camera. The viewers are hyped, wondering if this fight could really work out. Suddenly, one of the crows starts cawing loudly. Hearing that, our hero knows it must be a good omen. As he runs, the creature continues chasing him, ready to finish him off. But when he looks up, he sees something that makes him hesitate. A massive explosion is coming from above and hits a nearby hill. His friends, watching from afar, also wonder where that came from. A huge cloud of smoke takes over the area. Hidden behind some rocks, our hero realizes he almost lost his life. He notices that the missile used was different from the previous ones. Even after the explosion, the monster is still alive and getting up. Watching it closely, he sees it was slightly damaged, but it still has decent vision. So the protagonist decides it's best to buy time using firepower. For that, he needs a core. But since he doesn't have one, all he can do is regret it. At that moment, the gods tell him to return with chakra, and Gang's body begins to glow. That reminds him of the previous time when his body was filled with chakra. Once again, his body feels just like before. The monster is now charging toward him at full speed. Our hero sharpens his focus to perform the moves correctly. Then he grips his shovel and channels his energy. Shouting, he charges forward with everything he's got. With full force, his weapon is thrown, even piercing through the creature's body. It looks confused, not even realizing what happened. And when it looks at its own torso, there's a gaping hole. One of the cores is now visible and can be extracted. Kang remains nearby and is stunned by what he sees. The young Kim is also impressed, witnessing the cameraman's true power. Our hero's body is still surrounded by powerful chakra. He looks at her and can feel all the attention on him. It's overwhelming. In the live stream, seeing that scene, the subscribers even call him insane. In fact, that core popped out of the body the moment the shovel hit it. Without delay, the crows swoop in and grab it in their beaks. The protagonist, who had come all this way for this to happen, calls out to them. He says they shouldn't eat that, but they've already swallowed it. This monster fish is known for evolving and quickly turning into a massive army. Later on, we see the headquarters of one of the teams. Someone asks the young Yu what was going on. With a regretful look, the boy simply apologizes. However, his superior says that apologies are useless and the answer should have been different. Then Yu explains that there was an unexpected variable and the cameraman ended up showing up. The team leader is his father, and he's quite irritated, saying what his son did was pathetic. The boy is startled, as it seems his father already knows everything that happened. Looking at them, he concludes it was probably that red-haired girl who told everything. With a disappointed look, his father says that his son's position seems to have become a burden. A screen appears right behind them showing the hero, and the man says Gang could replace him. Unable to believe what he just heard, the son is left speechless. And angrily, someone says that this can't happen, since it was him who came up with the team's name. But his father is furious and tells him to shut up. Using his immense power, he says that the one who ruined their name was his own son. Lying on the floor, Yu keeps listening, his brother being accused of putting on a show in front of people. With little else to do, once again he apologizes. The chief's assistant, witnessing everything, gets excited because she likes his reaction. She gets close to his ear and says that the leader of Team 2 knows this matter well. She also says that person is really good at cleaning up messes. That makes the chief furious, calling her a damn pest. Clenching his fists, the man says he'll take measures to ensure his team won't suffer more damage. With nothing more to do, Yu just turns around in anger and leaves. Still in the room, his father comments to the secretary that his son still has a lot to learn about arrogance. Looking at the image of the protagonist, the man says he has a job for the secretary. He asks her to investigate, so they can have him on their side. The young woman realizes her boss holds Gang in high regard. He says that, in truth, when he sees him, he feels as if he's seeing an old friend. That makes the girl a bit uneasy. Maybe he's comparing him to someone from the past. Then he asks for his younger son, the one who is currently imprisoned, to be brought to him. Later, at the Monster Association branch, a meeting is taking place. The local director is delivering news to the press. Journalists want to know if there's any counterattack plan to deal with the fortress. Already nervous, the director asks them to ask their questions one at a time. His assistant whispers to him that Yu and his team have cut off contact. That makes the old man even more irritated, asking what the boy thought he was doing. Back at the fortress, our hero is showing the interior to his followers. He also shows a small blue monster and says that this will be the character introduced. Squeezing the little monster's body, he says it's not as soft as it looks. And showing the other compartments, he explains that there are several clones around. Picking one up in his arms, he says he saw something interesting. But at that moment, his phone rings and interrupts the presentation. When he realizes what's on the screen, he's shocked. The notification showed that the null blade had appeared again. So immediately, he apologizes to his viewers and says he'll have to go to China. With the appearance of monsters, traveling abroad had become possible only by plane. Because of that, the protagonist is already thinking about how to catch a flight. To be faster, he asks his followers for help. That fan of his who received the horn from one of the monsters remains focused. Gang says that whoever doesn't help will be invited to the fortress. The girl, being a super fan, says she won't miss this chance no matter what. While checking his phone, Gang wonders if that was a bit much, since getting a flight nowadays isn't easy. But it doesn't take long before he sees something that catches his attention. His follower says the government was trying to get in touch with him. He really was receiving calls, but didn't want to answer to avoid problems. Then he remembers where the girl lives and thinks she might actually be connected to important people. Taking advantage of his live stream, he says any politicians involved should contact him directly. The old man is in a meeting with Yu and asks the boy to say something. In response, the young man says his team will take responsibility. Then the director calls his assistant and tells him to call our hero. Speaking to him over the phone, the old man introduces himself and says who he is. Our hero gets straight to the point and says he needs a plane immediately. Annoyed, the director asks if he has any idea how big that request is. Interrupting, Yu takes the phone from the old man's hand. Talking to the protagonist, he says his company will provide the plane. Our hero seems to recognize the voice. The young man also thanks him for defeating a fish monster. Our hero figures it might be a good idea to negotiate a bit with the kid. Already in China, the helicopter prepares to land. The pilot says he can see the destination and tells the protagonist to get ready. Gang, who remains seated, seems focused on getting what he wants. Looking out the window, he observes the landscape and asks if this is really China. Still up in the air, he says everything looks completely different from what he knew. He also remembers the earlier conversation and how he never imagined he'd manage to get a flight. Thinking about the guy who spoke with him, he suspects they might be planning something. But the protagonist decides not to worry about that for now. He'll deal with it later. At that moment, the pilot says they're about to land. But with wide eyes, Gang asks them to stop for a moment. Upon stepping out of the helicopter, he realizes there's nothing on the list, just a desert. In response, the pilot says this is the correct location and that once he's done, he can get in touch. Right after, the man leaves, leaving our hero and his birds alone. Looking at his phone, he sees an incoming call from a Chinese number, but he decides it's best to ignore it and start recording. Then, looking at the camera on the crows, he introduces himself. From afar, someone on horseback watches Gang's speech. He's saying he's going to follow the null blade, and in the background, the man dismounts from the horse. Getting closer, the person tells our hero to keep quiet. The horse is already very close, almost on top of the protagonist. This man, who seems to be from some imperial family, asks the protagonist which family he belongs to, but our hero doesn't understand what the man is talking about. Once again, the man asks, saying this is his last chance. Then the gods decide to grant a gift, and the ring on the shovel starts to glow. Right in front of him, the man keeps shouting about his lineage, and suddenly, Gang is able to understand him, realizing it was the gods who helped. Out of patience and drawing his sword, the man says he'll eliminate him if he doesn't reveal his identity. But our hero doesn't seem to care much about that. Holding his weapon, he asks if that guy really thinks he's going to take him down. Immediately, the man senses the overwhelming power. Even so, the protagonist decides not to fight and explains why he's there. In response, the man says that around here they call him the Heavenly Demon and asks if Gang is a martial artist. Without going into much detail, our hero says that in a way, yes, he is. Then the man bursts into laughter, saying it's madness for anyone to go after the Heavenly Demon. With a more serious expression, the man remembers what his leader said some time ago about someone who would arrive. Looking at the birds on the protagonist's shoulder, he also recognizes them as omen birds. Then he tries to make a proposal, explaining that the crows are sacred to his clan and could help in exchange for a prophecy. But Gang is a bit suspicious, wondering if it's some kind of trap. The man on the horse sheathes his sword again. He says he knows he doesn't seem very trustworthy and apologizes for how everything started. At that moment, his pendant begins to glow, and the young man summons his power right there. He causes a massive explosion in the ground, sending rocks flying everywhere. Our hero, watching everything, recognizes it as the power of a 2-star monster. Then the man explains that he has no intention of harming him. If he wanted to, he could have already done it. Our hero, standing there alone, thinks it might not be so bad to have some help. So he decides to introduce himself, saying his name. The young man also introduces himself, saying he's the 13th son of the Hyujin clan. After hearing that, Gang is shocked, as it's very different from what he was told before coming. So he starts following the young man, glancing around suspiciously. Seeing those grand ancient constructions, he wonders if this is really China. The armor and weapons that people are using don't match the current generation either. The locals there also show great fear of foreigners. Everything is being broadcasted, and the followers also comment on the situation of the place. When he arrives at his house, someone greets the young man, calling him young master. Along the way, he starts explaining his clan to the protagonist, and soon they arrive at the pavilion of the Flaming River, which is over 500 years old. Faced with such grandeur, Gang is truly shocked by these differences. The young man tells the guard that our hero is his honored guest, and while Gang stays silent, the boy says he wants to meet his chief. Somewhat suspicious, the guards whisper among themselves. Nervous about the delay, the young master complains that they're making the guest wait. At that moment, the boy notices the presence of someone he didn't expect. A girl named Namgong says their chief has already granted them permission to enter, so the two of them follow her into the palace. Our protagonist is impressed with every corner of the place. He also notices that all the beautiful young women from the village were in that same place. The girl leads them to an elevator, and the boy asks if their chief had allowed this. In response, the girl says it is allowed, since they have a special guest. The young master then tells our hero that their chief must consider him someone important to let him use the elevator. While going up, the protagonist can't stop staring at that girl. She also keeps looking at the protagonist's shovel suspiciously. After going up for a few seconds, they reach the 15th floor. Right ahead, there is a closed door, and the girl says the chief is waiting inside. As the door opens, our hero maintains a very firm posture. And right there, sitting on his majestic chair, was the tribe's chief. The fat old man welcomes them and introduces himself. After that, he gestures with his hands, saying the other two can leave the room. Out of respect, they lower their heads and say they'll do just that. Alone in the room with his birds, our protagonist remains wary. The old king says it's been a while since he felt nervous, but now in front of the protagonist he is. Gang, still just listening, thinks about how the chief looks younger than he really is. And as he's imagining that, the fat man asks if he's thinking he looks too young. Then he explains that monster cores aren't just used for superpowers. Showing his ring that contains a stone, he says it can also bring benefits to one's body. The old man also comments that the chief of the famous Korean hunters group also had one of those. With that, the protagonist concludes that this man controls all the information and dominates the village. Then, getting straight to the point, our hero asks if the old man can locate the null blade. Apologizing for being so relaxed, the chief says he'll answer right away to avoid wasting time. He asks Gang to wait a bit, as the soldiers are currently searching for that monster. To let him rest from the trip, the king says his daughter will personally take care of him until there's news. The young girl introduces herself by name. She points to the place ahead, signaling for the protagonist to go there. Even without knowing the old man's true intentions, our hero decides to play along. He's going to do everything he can to eventually capture that damn monster. Meanwhile, the old man keeps letting out awkward giggles. Until the soldiers arrive at the location, he stays seated on his royal bench. But he wonders if the girl won't leave his side, since she's been there the entire time. So he tells the girl, who gets startled, that he wants to rest alone. The girl explains that her chief told her to take good care of him, so she couldn't leave. While looking at her face, he notices something strange. Her eyes had turned red and glowing. It was as if she were trying to hypnotize the protagonist, but he notices and asks what that means. He gives her a firm look, and the girl, still with those glowing eyes, keeps staring at him. Focused on our hero's face, she asks him to show the secrets he's hiding. However, the protagonist doesn't know what secret she's talking about. Then, with her already on his lap, he says this is absurd, that he doesn't have to reveal any secrets. The girl becomes confused as she can't read the mind of our hero. Soon, the gods say they're irritated with this girl, and the protagonist realizes she was trying to read his mind with a superpower. Standing up, he says he already knows what she tried to do and demands an explanation. To show his power, he activates his chakra, which flows throughout his body. Stunned, the girl realizes that this energy is taking over her jewel. It's as if it's draining everything that was inside it. Earlier, before she joined the protagonist, her father told her she had to find a way to get the shovel. At first, she was nervous and even tried to avoid doing it. But being extremely abusive, the boss said she had no choice and even threatened her. Closing her eyes, she regrets not having any other option. And when the protagonist sees everything that happened, he realizes deep down the girl needs to be saved. As he looks at her, he understands that what he just saw were her memories. Holding her hand, he thinks about what to do if those memories turn out to be true. So he tells the girl they should have a very honest conversation. Going to the clan leader, he calls that fat guy by name. Then standing beside the girl, Gang says he needs an explanation. The man asks what he's talking about, but deep down he already knows his daughter failed. So he says that apparently his daughter didn't meet the protagonist's standards, and unexpectedly he attacks our hero, firing flames. The blast also flies dangerously close to the girl's head, but she manages to dodge at the last second. With a weapon in hand, the leader says he won't sit still now that he knows the whole truth. Our protagonist is already running out of patience, since such a sudden shot had definitely crossed the line. He grabs his shovel and points it at the fat man, saying he was the one who started it. The fat man replies that even though Gang is strong, he's still human, so if a bullet hits him, he'll die. Gesturing with his hand, he permits the hero to bring the shovel to him. However, Gang doesn't stay quiet and argues that the problems there wouldn't be solved with just his shovel. The old man, now agitated, tells him to shut up, saying there's no hope in that place. Everything had been abandoned, and people were already losing their lives to hunger. The fat man explains they went to the government to make a deal, but the authorities didn't care about their land. So now he says that the shovel must be worth something to them since it repelled a monster. At that moment, the protagonist realizes that the fat old man had been spreading false information about the monster being there. Yelling, the old man confirms it and says he should just hand over the items so they can be done with this. Then Gang says that yes, he's going to hand it over, leaving the old man confused. Next, he tosses his shovel and warns that it might be a bit heavy. He aims it and it ends up landing straight on the leader's foot. The moment he feels the weight, he widens his eyes. In pain, he points the weapon back at the protagonist, but he doesn't even have time to act, as our hero is faster and punches him in the face. The man's face is smashed, and he even loses some teeth. The impact sends him flying toward his so-called king's chair. His head hits hard, and he completely loses consciousness. His daughter, who's also in the room and watching everything, is stunned. At that moment, another young man rushes in, panicked after hearing the noise. However, when he sees the scene of his boss unconscious, he says nothing. He just stands there for a few seconds, facing our hero and the girl. Once it hits him what just happened, he starts screaming for his boss. The old man was lying there, unresponsive. With that, the protagonist already expected he'd have trouble with this young man. Grabbing his sword, the boy says he won't let Gang leave there alive. Pointing his sword, he says no excuse is going to work on him. Then, after getting into position with the sword, he activates his firepower as well. Our hero, standing on the other side, wonders if he should just knock him out. Meanwhile, the young man starts venting, saying that despite everything, the boss was his real father. Right after, he charges full force, hurling stones toward our hero. His sister, who was right there, steps in front to defend the protagonist and asks her brother to stop. Confused, the young man asks why his sister is stepping in. Then he rests his sword on the ground. The tension in the room is heavy for everyone. Still confused, the boy asks what she's doing and if she's helping the enemy. Calmly, the girl approaches her brother, calling him by name. She explains that the boss isn't the good person everyone thinks he is. Getting closer, she uses her hypnotic ability. Just like before, her eyes turn crimson red. Our hero, watching everything from the side, thinks that ability is incredible. Now that he's seen the whole truth about what happened in the past, the young man is in shock. He asks if everything he just saw about his chief's evil deeds was true. With his sister's confirmation, the young man turns to speak with the protagonist. As a sign of respect, he bows and apologizes to our hero, saying he's in his debt. Outside the palace, it's chaos and everything is on fire. Innocent people had weapons stuck in their bodies, already lifeless. The chief's secretary was leading a rebellion and killing everyone there. Alongside the Black Wolf squad, the girl was trying to seize power. From the top of the palace, the protagonist and his friend watch the horrible scene. The boy says those are the bodyguards of the family chief and that the young woman is actually his stepmother. With a wicked look, the woman approaches our hero, demanding the shovel in exchange for his life. With yet another person after his shovel, which is nothing new, his friend says he'll find an escape route. But he asks him to take care of his sister instead. Holding his weapon, he explains to both of them that they don't need to worry and that they can trust him. He then positions his shovel and Chakra surrounds it completely. Next, he throws it from where he stands, leaving behind only its trail. The squad members below are sent flying by the impact. The chief's son is shocked by all that power. Turning with a smile, our hero says that if he wanted to, he could have taken him out from the beginning. That's because when he arrived there, the young man threatened him with a sword. However, since he can't waste any more time, he leaps from where he was using his energy. He's very excited to show everyone his true power. Down below, the squad members try to pull the shovel from the ground but can't. And without realizing, the protagonist crashes down there, hitting the ground and sending everyone flying again. Some of the men who escaped comment that, as far as they knew, Gang had no abilities, but after what they'd just seen, they decide to use their knives to take him down. They all charge at the same time to defeat him. Holding his shovel and swinging it, Our hero says everything will be just self-defense. Shocked, the stepmother wonders if the rumors that he had repelled the celestial demon were true. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Hugo, the fat chief, is still unconscious. The two siblings are there and comment that they must leave quickly before everything collapses. The girl feels bad about leaving their father behind, but her brother says there's no time. Then they notice the core inside the chief's ring is glowing, so the boy concludes that their father hasn't lost his life yet. The old man's hand starts moving, and his body seems to gain strength. From inside him, some sort of spear rips through his body to come out. It had multiple claws and multiple eyes. When it fully emerges from the body, they realize what it is. It was the spider monster, and it was using the family chief as a host. The young swordsman Shin tries to protect his sister, asking her to stay behind him. Since the monster was just born, he believes it shouldn't be very powerful yet. Without delay, the creature charges at him at full speed. At that moment, the young man realizes he won't be able to block the attack. With no chance to counter, he's sent flying along with his sword. Meanwhile, the girl is left standing there, unsure of what to do. A bit farther away, the brother tries to get up, but he's still breathing heavily. Trying to save him, his sister runs toward him, but the creature is already right behind. Realizing what's about to happen, the young man panics and starts calling out to his sister. But at that moment, his necklace emits an intense green glow that fills the area. He reacts quickly and steps forward to fight the creature. Worried, his sister screams his name, but Jin is focused and manages to slash part of one of the monster's legs. Even he is surprised by his strength, as he's much stronger than usual. Looking at his necklace, he also feels that the synchronization rate with the core has increased. The beast remains there with some cuts, so the young man prepares again to act before the monster recovers. He grabs his sword and charges straight at the monster once more. This time, the spider tries to jump to dodge the attacks. Even so, it ends up being hit in several parts of its body. The monster wants to eliminate everyone, but it remembers something it must do first. So it retreats outside in search of a new host. Quickly, it focuses on the stepmother who was outside with the squad members. The woman notices some movement and even turns her head to look. But suddenly, a massive attack comes her way, causing a huge explosion. As the dust settles, they realize there's a monster there and the woman had been struck. Our hero, who doesn't understand any of it, wonders where a monster like that came from. Meanwhile, the spider wraps the stepmother's body in its web. Once everything is ready, it leaves while muttering. The woman tangled in all those webs is still alive and cries for help. The squad members realize it was a spider monster acting as a host, and looking at the creature's body, they spot some wounds. So they conclude that in this state, they could finish the monster off. Meanwhile, the spider thinks of a place where it could buy some time. Then, using one of its fire blasts, it tries to flee quickly through the group. The woman's soldiers run after it to rescue her, while our hero stands still. Gang is shocked to see them chasing the creature without even having a plan. They reach the monster's lair and already know it must be inside. Entering slowly, the place is filled with webs, and they know they have a shot because it's weakened. However, some of the webs wrap around the soldiers' bodies, leaving them paralyzed. Touching the thread connected to the others, the spider unleashes its power. As a result, the men trapped in the web are struck. The other companions watching are stunned, realizing this monster had a certain intelligence. With this plan, it effectively neutralized the two who were caught. After that, the creature lifts the two men up to where it is high above. Up there, they see that the monster had already possessed the body of the stepmother. Little by little, the spider was fusing with the woman, and the core kept growing. The squad members there realized their commander was turning into a monster, so without delay, they charge in to try to attack the creature. But the woman was already possessed and completely enraged. With little effort and using her power, the monster overpowers them. Red fluid spreads all over the nest. One of the men crawls across the floor, pleading for help. However, his feet are still tangled in one of the webs that tries to pull him back. Realizing the monster is about to get him, he panics. But to his surprise, our hero arrives just in time, using his chakra. Stepping forward, Gang says he already expected this would happen. His birds are right behind, broadcasting everything. The moment he saw that monster, our hero immediately understood what had happened. He realized the person in front of him was the same woman from earlier. At that moment, the phone in his pocket starts ringing. Helicopters are flying overhead, demanding that the protagonist stop recording there. The man on the call says that if he doesn't hang up, he's going to lose his life. That makes our hero furious, as they call at a moment when he's extremely busy. Right as something is about to happen, his bird starts singing. Unfortunately for our hero, it's the call that signals bad omens. Immediately, the spider monster tries to strike Gang, who defends himself with his shovel. He wonders if he should even continue this fight, since the rebel army has already been wiped out. Looking at the helicopters, he notices the symbol below belongs to the 4th Red Dragon Force. Several of them are there, trying to stop the broadcast and contain the disaster. The man who seems to be the commander is furious because our hero hung up on him. Then members of the attack force equip glove-shaped weapons. They are ordered to eliminate the spider monster and also secure the protagonist's shovel. Without delay, they enter the area and aim directly at the monster. One of the soldiers is excited, saying the creature is nothing more than a bug. Inside one of the helicopters, the man gets his fire glove ready to attack. Then, all at once, they open fire. The spider monster looks up at the sky and sees small glimmering beams. It then prepares its core, hoping to escape. When it hits the ground, a massive explosion erupts. The leader celebrates for hitting the correct spot. Smiling, he says that this is the power of his great nation. But before he can even finish his sentence, one of his comrades is attacked, destroying the helicopter. He's left confused, trying to understand what that was. In fact, the monster was untouched. It was throwing fireballs in retaliation. Our hero was still nearby, watching everything that was happening. He believes he's witnessing the well-known shockwave of Blow Tor. Meanwhile, the shockwave attack keeps coming from the monster, but helicopters were being hit and destroyed. Seeing this, the leader panics and wonders what kind of spider monster that is. He then tells his remaining comrades to spread out so they don't all get caught in the blast. From a certain part of the spider's body, it spreads a massive amount of web. With that, it manages to grab another one of them midair. It also snags the helicopter blades, which immediately stop spinning. With that, the helicopter begins to fall, leaving the leader in despair. In the end, it crashes into the ground, blowing up in all directions. Once again, a body is flung. This time, someone else's. Holding his birds, the protagonist wonders how this situation could show any sign of good luck. He believes maybe the host possesses the superpowers of Blow Tor. But in this situation, our hero sees no reason to fight more than necessary against this monster. So he tells the viewers that he's going to run away from there. But that's not what the gods expected from our hero, even though he tells them he can't handle it this time. However, they say they were waiting to make another donation. With that in mind, his reaction changes. He's suddenly excited to face the creature. Heading into battle, he tells his followers that the real fight is about to begin. The leader who was in the helicopter is still alive and crawling, gasping for air. Looking up, he reflects that what he's seen makes no sense at all. With all his comrades already lifeless, he wonders how just one monster managed to wipe them all out. His members are highly trained, and victory should have been certain for them. But he now imagines the monster is strong because of the memories of the stepmother woman. Considering her battle experience and her superpower, it made the monster incredibly strong. With such power in that woman, the entire squad had gone on the defensive. But then he turns and notices someone approaching. From the other side, our hero arrives, ready to take down the creature. Gang was trying to destroy its core quickly. Confused, the woman who is now a monster feels a strange sensation. When she looks at the protagonist, she immediately senses that it comes from the shovel. So to maximize her chances of winning, she decides she will absorb the brothers' cores first. That way, she would also get revenge, since her stepson had hurt her badly. With a vengeful look, the monster plans its next move. Its body moves in a way that the protagonist can't read or predict. He's left confused, wondering what that damn thing is up to. Next, the creature simply uses its power to make a massive leap. Realizing she's fleeing, our hero gets really irritated. Since the creature was heading for the palace, he already suspects she's going after the siblings. So he can't waste time and says he has to move fast. But when he tries to move, the shovel doesn't seem to want to follow. That's because he feels it's much heavier than usual. He also notices that its handle is much longer, so he charges his body with chakra to try to lift it. Since he's struggling, he begs for it to go back to normal. Soon after, Gang lights up, as it seems he's finally able to lift it again. But at that moment, a new mark appears on it. He wonders if this is the new donation from the gods, since he can now control its size. The viewers who are paying close attention notice this shrinking. After that, he strikes the shovel on the ground. With his foot on top of it, the protagonist says that if he can shrink it, then he can also make it grow. Standing right in front of the palace and with his body filled with energy, he's ready to go after the monster. Inside, the siblings try to escape the place, which is already collapsing. They run as fast as they can, but at that moment, the spider woman arrives, breaking everything and sending Jin flying. When he sees that his stepmother is the creature, he screams. His sister is extremely worried about him and shouts his name. Jin is lying on the ground, about to be eliminated by the monster. However, once again, she gets furious for being interrupted. The protagonist arrived just in time, already in position to strike her. Confused, the stepmother wonders how he managed to get there so quickly. Gang is completely focused on taking her down. To reach that height, our hero made his shovel grow in size. Shocked, the creature becomes furious upon seeing this unusual sight. After reaching the top and shrinking the shovel back down, the woman thinks about what to do. But Gang quickly prepares himself, using his full strength. And with his best technique, he throws the shovel at the monster with everything he's got. With no time to react, the spider is struck. Her body is pierced, forming a massive crater. And with the creature lying motionless on the ground, helicopter approaches. The siblings are happy that the protagonist is still there. And upon seeing the helicopter, the girl asks if he's already leaving. In response, our hero says he's finished everything he needed to do there. And even though he was deceived, he learned important lessons about awakening and extreme speed. He was also glad because he had gained a new ability with his shovel. But there was something else bothering Gang. His shovel wouldn't stop emitting a signal, and he wonders if something happened at the fortress. Because of that, the girl offers to go with our hero. Caught off guard, the protagonist doesn't know what to say. So carefully, he thinks about how to tell her it's not possible. Placing his hand over the girl's core stone, he explains what happened. The girl is able to see all his memories. She meets Gang's family and also sees how Null Blade destroyed everything. After that, she witnesses all the pain the protagonist went through, even losing his little sister, and how he nurtured that revenge since childhood to destroy that monster. When Gang lets her go, she's shaken by everything she saw. Her breathing quickens, and she becomes breathless. Finally, the protagonist tells her that the path he must follow isn't worth it. Then he turns around and says he's leaving. While flying the helicopter, he sees some news about the Hunter rankings. He believes it changed because of the Red Dragon team's defeat. Even though the main member of the team didn't participate in the battle, there was no way to avoid the drop in rank. Then in the weekly news, they discuss the new standings, and that's how they reveal the current top 5. And this includes our protagonist among them. Next, the journalist starts to go through each one, beginning with Captain Africa. His team was blocking the Entropy Monster Army. In second place is the strongest man in Russia, known as Kaiser. In third, Master Johann, known as the leader of the strongest assault force. In fourth is Yamato, the strongest dual sword wielder. After listing the top 4, she picks up the final card. And so she announces that in 5th place is Mr. Cameraman, the most talked about name right now. She says that he managed to take down the variant that the Red Dragon members failed to defeat. The journalist's coworker comments that he's eager to see Gang's power from a new perspective. The only thing he knows for sure so far is that the shovel is incredibly powerful. Not understanding, the journalist asks what exactly he means by that. He explains that not all monsters have a humanoid form like the fortress. He also highlights that aside from our hero, no one else can even lift the shovel, and there's the fact that it was able to wound Null Blade. Meanwhile, the protagonist listens to the entire interview as they talk about him. As soon as he hears the man say the shovel might be a monster, he turns off the phone. However, Gang isn't upset and understands why people think that way, and honestly, he's starting to enjoy all the attention. At that moment with the sound of waves, he wonders if they're already flying over the Sea of Darkness, and he reflects that the only reason he was able to get to China was because of this aerial transport. Unexpectedly, the gods start commenting that they're getting anxious. And to complete the moment, one of the birds starts to sing. The helicopter's radar isn't acting normal and starts beeping. Something strange appears just above the rotor blades. It's a massive insect with wings. The pilot panics as he realizes the creature is closing in. Gang is also shocked because he didn't expect another attack so soon. That insect monster was almost the size of the helicopter itself. With that, everything starts to fall apart, and our hero begins to panic. Part of the helicopter breaks apart. As a result, the monster manages to get inside and ends up face to face with our hero. Without thinking twice, the protagonist manages to cut off one of the horns. The monster becomes disoriented, crying and deceiving. Confused, our hero wonders why this African monster is even here. The insect is near the water, trying to stabilize itself. Gang also doesn't understand why a winged monster is at sea. With no time to spare, he tries to act. Because if the helicopter took more damage, they fall into the ocean. The creature is also ready to attack again. Using one of its abilities, the monster manages to see Gang's chakra. That's why, at high speed, it flees the area, leaving Gang baffled. Mouth wide open, he asks himself if the thing is really running away. And yes, the monster was taking off immediately. Falling to the ground, our hero takes a deep breath, thinking he was about to lose his life. Still gasping, he asks what that crazy episode was. A few minutes later, they were safely back in Korea. One of Gale's soldiers informs a man that Gang was already arriving. With fury in his eyes, this man doesn't look pleased to hear the protagonist's name. After landing, Gang walks toward the ground level exit. Scratching his head, he comments that he nearly died even before facing the Null Blade. At that moment, the youngest son of Gale's leader calls out to Gang. This man was the protagonist's former boss at the beginning of the story. Now Gang throws it in his face that he already suspected he was one of the Sons of the Storm. Wasting no time, Gang turns his back, and the buff guy says they should go to the protagonist's house. Without Gang's attention, Lam yells at him that it's already too late at night. Even so, Gang insists that how he leaves isn't any of his business. With that reaction, Lam gets furious. He wanted to fight Gang, but his father's secretary was there watching his every move. So he yells to the protagonist, who has his back turned, that a limousine is already waiting. Turning around, all Gang can think is that Lam has lost his mind. Angrily, he climbs the stairs asking about this limousine and what he's planning, but the buff guy is so scared he can't even give a proper answer. Holding his shovel, our hero tells him to spit it out while there's still time. So Lam tries to explain, saying he was just ordered to help the team. Quickly, our hero remembers his older brother. Gang suspects that this is all Yu's idea. At that moment, his shovel begins to emit the tower's signal, so he thinks he better leave as soon as possible, since something might be wrong. Immediately, he starts running, saying he has no time to deal with small talk. Lam panics and begs Gang to wait. That was already the edge of the building, and the protagonist simply jumps. Then he commands his shovel to extend. It does exactly as he said and increases in size. With that, our hero slides along the shovel, and so he continues moving with the help of the shovel. He was going as fast as he could. His body was practically flying to reach the artillery station as quickly as possible. This ability he was using was the result of combining it with his chakra. The speed he could achieve was like that of a human bullet. The gods were also enjoying the combination, and after a short while, he arrives at the tower. With his high-speed landing, the ground even cracks. When he looks forward, he's faced with something unusual. There was a light post, and he wonders if the artillery was responsible for all this. From the entrance that leads inside, a voice can be heard screaming. A man is crying for help with a little blue monster on his head. He begs the protagonist to save him and says he'll never read again. Confused, our hero asks what's going on. That man is one of the members of the Storm Squad. To find out what's happening, he gathers the 3 intruders in his room. They explain to the protagonist that they came to try to get the underground core, and Gang asks if that's when they got caught by the slides. They nod and apologize for what they did. Now that he stops to think, it all makes sense. The members of that team had been trying to deceive him from the start, but he also admits it's impressive to have an iron core like the girl who reads minds. After that, our hero decides to let them go and tells them to leave. They keep thanking him and show respect by kneeling on the ground. The crows with the camera flash a bright light. It seems the protagonist already has a plan to get revenge. Looking at the slides, he notices they look sad and must be hungry. They approach Gang's body, making him uncomfortable. That's when he realizes the little creatures are interested in his chakra. When they touch his body, they're able to absorb some of that energy, and within seconds, our hero sees that the slime has grown. But when he looks at his phone, he remembers that today is the day his follower is supposed to visit his home. So he figures it's better to wait for her to come first before letting them grow any bigger. Meanwhile, in the helicopter, scientists collect remains of the monster. They manage to find part of the horn that the protagonist had pulled off. They also say it needs to be analyzed, but it's almost certain that it's an antropy. This monster is an ant that avoids hard work. Its habit is to enslave humans, and its reproduction rate is extremely high. The appearance of this winged variant can only mean one thing. A new queen has emerged. Later, we see the Republic of Korea. The young Kim is there and has just defeated a few monsters. At that moment, she sees a notification warning of a possible entropy variant in the area. The other hunters receive it too and are shocked. The big guy Gang realizes the situation is about to get ugly. Around the city, our hero uses his shovel for movement. With its new ability, he's able to leap from building to building. Once he reaches his destination, he jumps to the ground. He was in a familiar place and hadn't expected to return so soon. Behind some bushes, he hears someone talking, so he decides to stay put and eavesdrop on what it's about. When he sees who it is, he wonders why those people are there. One of them is an older man with glasses, a high-ranking hunter. He asks his subordinates why they took so long. The pink-haired girl mocks them, saying her collie is too sensitive. Playing along, the blonde boy says the man probably wants to become an idol with this opportunity. At that moment, Kim also approaches and asks if the man had waited long. She says her conversation with her younger sister lasted longer than expected. Hearing this, the blonde guy says she loves her brother a bit too much, and since everyone was already there, they could head out in the car parked nearby. As they're about to get in, the guy says the lady should go first. The girl says she's only interested in Gang, which annoys the blonde boy. The young man says his sister is also in love with Gang, and he just doesn't get why girls like him so much. Our protagonist, who's watching everything from behind a bush, wonders if they gathered because of the entropy. Even though he's curious, he decides to let it go. He's got other things to deal with. Our protagonist is entering a hidden place. The gods try to give their opinions, saying they're anxious, but Gang snaps back that things don't get solved like that. Suddenly, the girl hears some noises and opens her curtain, coming face to face with the protagonist. Right away, she recognizes Gang and even calls him by name. Startled, our hero tries to explain that he's not some kind of criminal, but the girl shuts the curtain in his face before he can even finish. Inside her house, another girl asks if he really is Gang. He confirms, but finds the whole situation pretty awkward. Inside, the young woman says she didn't know he was that fast and that she'll go change first. Apologizing, the protagonist says he got there using a different method. Curious, the girl pulls the curtain open and asks if that method was his shovel. With no way to avoid it, Gang admits it, which makes the girl even more intrigued. Not wasting any time, she runs off to change clothes. Our hero is left speechless. He didn't expect her to get so excited. He even smiles a bit because she reminds him of someone. His little sister always asked for his opinion when she didn't know what to wear. Thinking about that, he gets a little sad. But the girl soon pulls his attention back. She's very well dressed and takes the opportunity to ask about the monster Gang fought. In response, the protagonist says he wasn't expecting that question, and the girl says she likes monsters. A little embarrassed, she says that with the cameraman's strength, it would be easy to defeat monsters. Hearing that compliment, our hero even starts feeling himself glowing with pride, but he replies that things aren't as simple as they seem. He explains that the Red Dragon Squad ended up being wiped out by a variant, and speaking bluntly, he tells her that you can never be sure of victory no matter the situation. The girl is impressed, realizing that Gang is very humble. At that moment, the gods start making romantic jokes, but the protagonist doesn't like it much. Getting straight to the point, he says he'll take her to his house, and the girl asks if he'll use the shovel. Then, immediately, he grabs it to begin moving. Before leaving, he tells the girl to hold on tight to his body, so she grabs onto his shirt as tightly as she can. After that, our hero begins to use his tactics to leap. The girl is amazed as she never imagined it would be this extreme. She comments that everything is so fast, she can't even believe it's real. While jumping across the city rooftops, the girl says she's super excited. With a cheerful face, she explains that she's always been sick, so it was hard for her to get around. That hits the protagonist emotionally, as he never imagined it. And as he looks at the girl's face, he thinks that if his sister were alive, she would probably look just like her. A little higher above, his birds are flying, and one of them lets out a cry. The recording starts, and our hero realizes that the cry was a bad omen. So he hurries, knowing that something bad is coming. It doesn't take long for a lightning bolt to pass near him along the way. He rushes as fast as he can, especially since the girl is with him. Then, when he identifies what it was, he sees it's the same insect from earlier. This monster was an entropy, and it had already reached the city. Still hovering in the air, he wonders where that creature came from. This monster is ready to attack with its stingers. Right away, our hero manages to defend himself using his weapon. Gang thinks about what to do, since if he falls, it won't just be him who gets hurt. Then, with wide eyes, he tries to assess how strong this monster really is. With the creature high above them, Gang asks for his shovel to extend. This causes the monster to get hurt, but even so, our hero prepares for another attack. When the giant insect hits the ground, its core begins to glow. Seeing this, the protagonist feels more at ease, knowing he can finally finish this. With his shovel aimed at the core, he dives down with full force. In the end, he hits it dead on, shattering it. The girl, still holding onto his arms, is impressed by his skill. Gang feels relieved, because even without expecting it, he managed to defeat the monster. The girl next to him fills her eyes with tears. She's excited. She was already a fan, but now she's sure he's amazing. However, unexpectedly, his bird cries out again, signaling bad luck once more. So he looks up to see if anything of the monster is left. The girl is startled, as it seems she sees something. More monsters and insects were coming from the skies. Our hero tells the girl he's about to go insane. Then he puts his arm in front of her to protect her. But he's still very confused about why these creatures are even here. He wonders why the situation has escalated like this. Several insects are approaching with their claws. Then our hero calls out to the girl, who listens closely. He tells her that when he gives the signal, she should run behind those rocks. But the girl is worried and asks what will happen to him. Taking his position, the protagonist says he has his own job to do. Meanwhile, the creatures charge forward wildly, ready to attack. So Gang tells the girl that it's time to hide. Immediately, he commands his shovel to extend, and it ends up striking one of the monsters directly. With the power and speed of the shovel, it slices the monster clean in half. But at that moment, Gang starts to feel something strange in the weapon. It begins dragging itself forward, making him panic. This divine item was no longer just moving straight. It was now performing strange new swings. Although it was unexpected, the protagonist gets excited, since he took down 4 at once. Now he focuses on finishing off the last one, but the creature flies right past him, heading forward. Quickly, our hero realizes the monster simply ignored him. It was going straight for the rocks where the girl was hiding. When she looks up and sees the creature, the girl begins to scream. Running to save her, the protagonist wonders why the creature is after her. That stinger is already dangerously close to the girl. If he delays, she'll be shredded. Before the monster can strike, it's hit by a ray of fire. The ones who did it were the slimes from the artillery tower. Looking at her, our hero thanks her and says she really knows what she's doing. But then, hearing a strange sound, he turns around to see what it is. Already knowing what to say, the man puts on a mysterious expression. That's when he explains that the protagonist is likely a suitable host for the Nullblade's core. Letting out a desperate laugh, he can't believe that's the reason, just because he survived. But the doctor explains that this isn't just speculation, it's a deduction based on evidence. Once again, he shows the documents and explains that every other survivor is unsuitable for any other core. Finally, he presents the last piece of evidence, saying this one will be decisive. Face to face with it once again, the protagonist widens his eyes. The doctor had compared that man with a monster, and the match was almost 100%. He explains that both the body and bone structure are identical. Understanding where the researcher is going with this, the protagonist tells him to get straight to the point. Then, a man says that maybe it's still just a theory. However, he believes that this cursed monster has been deliberately keeping its potential hosts alive. He still doesn't fully understand the reason behind this. Perhaps the monster wants to take over a human body, since it might be able to transform into one at any moment. The protagonist reacts by laughing out loud in front of the doctor. Once again, he slams his hand on the table and says the doctor must be talking nonsense. But the doctor has one more explanation to give. Once again, our hero is shaken by this new evidence. The man explains that Gang has probably seen a core acting like a seed before. That's what causes a human to transform into a monster, and research is already underway. The doctor continues, saying that monster cores still hold many hidden secrets. Meanwhile, the protagonist listens to every word without saying a thing. Finally, the doctor concludes that this is why he believes the survivors of the Null Blade were kept alive. Even so, something seems to be disturbing the protagonist's peace. He asks how those people with no special skills managed to get that monster's core. In response, the researcher says that's something they'll have to investigate from now on. Because among so many monsters of this kind, he's sure they're hiding something. Leaving the place, the protagonist reflects on the possibility that this cursed monster might actually be human. He also thinks that, if that's true, maybe he could become one too. But he immediately remembers that horrible scene of his sister and father losing their lives right in front of them. Clenching his fist, he says it doesn't matter what it is. Focused, he finishes by saying that, either way, this monster, or human, is his worst enemy. So he's determined to destroy this creature no matter what it takes. Suddenly, a woman runs toward him asking for help. Not understanding, the protagonist turns his head, trying to see what's going on. When he sees the person, he realizes it's the younger sister of someone he knows. Startled, the protagonist asks how she knew he was there. But the girl is desperate and begs him to help her brother because he might die. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, The blonde guy's group is presenting themselves on a live stream. An older man is clearly not happy with what he's hearing. Next, the pink-haired girl is introduced as the best healer. But when Kim is introduced as the best heroine, the pink-haired girl doesn't like it. On the other hand, young Kim shows no emotion at all in response to the compliment. In fact, she even complains that it was a pretty shallow compliment. As they approach the area that was attacked, they're shocked by all the destruction. The eldest in the group asks who had already taken care of those destroyed monsters. Then Kim says they should start by putting out the fires and looking for survivors. The man then activates his core and power begins to flow from his wrist. That blue aura spreads across the area around him. His power gradually puts out the fire until nothing is left. Next, excited, the pink-haired girl runs off to search for survivors. Her healing ability is already activated. Along the way, she finds a man and uses her healing circle to recover him. But what catches her attention is that he appears to be the only survivor. She looks around and doesn't detect any other movement. The blonde guy, updating the viewers, says they found a survivor. Getting closer to the man, the girl asks what happened there. He's still very weak and tells them to be careful, because there's more than one monster present. However, Kim finds the whole thing strange. It turns out the man's mouth is moving, but no sound is coming out. Struggling to speak, he tries to tell them to run, but no sound comes out. Noticing this, Kim already seems to know who it is. The blonde boy wonders what she's doing. The girl is in the air and seems to change the wind's rotation with her power. Once again, the boy shouts at her, asking what she's doing. But he panics when he realizes his voice also won't come out anymore. At that moment, a light fills the area. A huge explosion is triggered, kicking up dust everywhere. The spectators can't see what's happening as the camera has fallen. The girl who had gone after the protagonist is showing him this video to see what's going on. But he's not satisfied, saying there's not enough information. He says the only thing he concluded from watching it is that there was an attack, a smoke explosion. After that, no sound could be heard in the broadcast. It went completely silent. When he realizes this happened, the protagonist suddenly becomes serious. Looking at the girl, he asks if the airport was where her brother had gone. Gang tells her that there's no guarantee her brother is alive, leaving the girl in shock. Even so, he tells her he'll do his best to find him for her. After that, using his shovel ability, he leaps through the skies. Shortly after, he had already arrived at the location shown in the video. As expected, he confirms that the place is completely silent. Looking around, he also sees that there are holes everywhere. He gets close to a few of them to take a look. From this, he concludes they are tunnels the monster uses for movement. So his plan from that point on is to find a way to lure the creature out. To begin his mission, he asks his birds to start the transmission. Then he tells his followers that the monster hunt is about to begin. Next, he reveals to them what the monster of the day is, and it had a well-known name. The monster was silent. Even though Gang is speaking with great enthusiasm, everything remains completely silent. One of his viewers asks why all the sound has vanished. With a focused look, the protagonist concludes that a monster has arrived. From one of the holes directly ahead, the creature emerges from its den, ready to attack. The viewers go wild when they realize it's a monster that eats sound. Seeing the creature right in front of him, our hero gets ready. Then he immediately strikes, trying to cut the monster in half. It actually works. The creature is split apart. However, in a short time, it regenerates completely. Sinking back into the ground, the silent creature causes a massive explosion. The protagonist knows this will be a tough fight, because this is no normal Cylon. This one is definitely much larger than average. Though he can't be heard, Gang tells his viewers that the monster is already returning. For that, he's going to use a strategy, because he knows these creatures love loud screams. He'll have to act quickly, since the missing people might still be alive. Underground, still a bit dizzy, Kim wakes up. Looking around and realizing they're all trapped, she begins to panic. But she can't move, much less say anything. They were stuck in a thick, sticky green slime. Immediately, she realizes this substance is the monster's venom. Her companion, who is right beside her, also starts coughing from the poison. Little by little, the girl begins to suffer the same effects. What's even more concerning is that she can't use her powers there, but she's also determined to do whatever she can to survive. That's because that Gang fan is her sister, and Kim is the only family she has. Slowly, Kim begins to lose the last of her strength, but she still wants to escape. Unexpectedly, the pink-haired girl shows up there saying she was looking for them. Confused, Kim asks how she's okay even with Cylon's poison. Smiling, the girl just looks at her, and then reveals that, in truth, she's a superhuman with a dual core. She explains that one of them is attuned to Cylon, and since she hadn't used it, she had even forgotten she had it. While walking through the green slime, the girl keeps saying her immunity plays a major role. Meanwhile, her friend is still there suffering from the venom in her body. Putting on a pitiful face, the pink-haired girl plays dumb. She gets closer to Kim, and in a mocking tone, asks if she still can't use her powers. Not understanding this reaction, Kim asks what she's doing. Out of nowhere, the healer kicks the girl. Kim, already in pain, starts screaming in agony. At that, the girl bursts into laughter, saying that Kim was only there to be taken down. Even then, Kim can't understand why her supposed friend is acting like this. In response, the girl says the plain truth is that she's doing it so Kim will die. This pink-haired girl is jealous and wanted to be the most admired and loved by everyone. She turns away, showing how bothered she is that people only talk about Kim around her. In a desperate tone, she asks why it's always Kim's name being mentioned. Meanwhile, without saying a word, Kim just listens to what the girl has to say. The girl continues venting, saying that Kim's arrogant attitude fills her with rage. Without mercy, the girl strikes her former companion once more. With her foot pressing down on Kim's head, she keeps her face submerged in the puddle of poison. This causes it to seep more rapidly into her body. Luckily, an explosion suddenly goes off above their heads. Who appears as our hero, arriving with his shovel. The healer girl can't believe he showed up to ruin her plan. Kim, on the other hand, feels relieved. Now she has a chance to be saved. With the force of the protagonist's landing, poison splashes everywhere. Looking into his camera, he shows his followers that he arrived at the nest safe and sound. They can also clearly see that the others who have been caught are there too. So Gang starts saving them, even though some have strange expressions on their faces. Acting innocent, the healer runs into the protagonist's arms. She even starts crying and says she was terrified. But our hero isn't fooled and notices that she's way too fine for someone in a place like that. So he looks forward to figure things out. And without delay, seeing Kim tossed aside, he immediately understands the situation. Turning to the healer, he tells her to stay put and that he'll save the rest. The girl, seeing she's being pushed aside again, becomes furious. Things get worse when she sees Gang go straight to save Kim. He speaks to her and says he'll need her help as the monster will soon return. But the girl replies that she can't use her power because of the poison. Even so, the protagonist grabs her arms and asks her to focus. He also compliments her abilities, leaving the girl flustered. She tries to reflect on whether she's really different from the others. But then she lowers her head and says she can't do it. It's too much for her. As the wall starts shaking, he asks if he said something wrong. And realizing the monster is coming back, he warns the others to get out of there. The monster was going to appear exactly where she and the blonde boy were. At that moment, the wall above begins to collapse. There's no time left, and the silent monster ends up appearing and biting down on the healer. Desperate, she screams for help, but this time, no sound comes out. Immediately, the protagonist runs to save her. Kim is confused as to why he's running after that fraud. With the girl in its mouth, Gang rushes in with his shovel to cut it. The young healer keeps mouthing words, but nothing comes out. Nervously, Gang regrets it, because with the creature moving so much, he can't aim for the core. Screaming non-stop, the girl reaches out her hand, begging not to be left to die. On the other side, Kim slowly regains enough strength to stand up. Now on her feet, she observes the situation, wondering if she could help. By this point, only the healer's head is sticking out. Gang approaches and uses his shovel to restrain the monster. He tries to maintain focus as he'll need to destroy the core in a single hit. That's because if he hits the wrong spot, the girl could be injured too. And he knows he has to be fast, otherwise, even he might end up buried. Looking back, our hero grows anxious about something. He wonders why there's no more sound coming from behind him. Suddenly, a red light shines through the darkness. Our protagonist's jaw drops when he sees what it is. The monster is moving on its own, lit up by a purple glow. This was thanks to Kim's power, which had fully returned. The girl came back with everything, her eyes showing unwavering focus. Seeing this, both Gang and the viewers get excited. Giving it her all, the girl pulls with all her strength to drag the creature. With that, the silent monster crashes into a wall and ends up releasing the healer. Panicked, she screams as she falls from a great height. But to her surprise, Kim uses her power to keep her from falling. Confused, the girl wonders why she was saving her. As she rescues her, Kim reflects that she doesn't care if the girl tried to eliminate her. Unlike her, Kim wanted to save everyone without exception. With great power, she forms a shield and begins expelling everything. Her other friends who were still trapped by the poison are saved. Impressed, our hero wonders why she only now revealed her power. The young woman was completely focused on taking down that creature. After her effort, she manages to get rid of all the poison. Standing up, the healer realizes that, in the end, she survived. And she reflects that all of this only happened because of her former enemy, Kim. On the other side, Kim collapses to the ground and says she's finally reached her limit. Then, with the little strength she has left, she looks at Gang. Facing the creature, she says she'll leave the rest to him. Wasting no time, he grabs his shovel and strikes with precision. Right away, he realizes he's pierced the monster's core. Letting out his battle cry, he splits the core in half, declaring it over. With everything resolved, he asks Kim if she can move. But when he looks at the young woman, he's confused. She was lying on the ground, staring at the girl in pink. The girl asks Kim why she saved her even after being humiliated by her. Giving it her all, Kim starts to respond. But everything begins to shake inside, and Gang grows concerned. The healer was doing this with her power, still consumed by anger. But this time, Kim doesn't stay defenseless and uses her power against her. The green necklace the healer wears begins to glow. With that, the girl manages to break Kim's power. Stunned, Kim starts sweating, realizing the girl broke her telekinesis. Then, the young woman revives the monster and commands it to attack Kim. Falling, the young woman still screams the girl's name, but the girl isn't letting it go and controls the beast to devour her. Luckily, Gang arrives just in time and grabs his friend. Furious, he tells the girl to get a grip, and even calls her out, asking why she was staring without blinking. After that, he leaps from where he was with the help of his shovel. Whispering, he tells Kim they need to combine their powers. Pointing to the monster, he says it's going to leak poison again. Then he points to their friends, asking if she wants them to get hurt. After that, he signals toward the creature. Kim understands what needs to be done and nods her head. Then the two join forces and use their powers to end it once and for all. With speed, the monster charges at them, but Kim and Gang are ready. Before reaching them, the creature notices something different. Kim was charging her power to control it, and so she manages to twist the monster just with her hand movements. Meanwhile, our hero prepares to do his part. Giving it his all, he swings his shovel and slices the beast in half. Finally, this time, the core is completely destroyed. The next morning, the wounded recover in the hospital. Kim, in her hospital bed, seems to be reflecting. She's worried, wondering what happened to her healer companion. Even after a long search, no one found her. Hunter Kim even remembers the last moment when the girl activated her necklace. What she did seemed intentional, to draw the monster's attention. Though she doesn't know the full truth, Kim is deeply saddened. At that moment, her sister arrives calling out to her. Kim gets upset, asking how she even got there since she was still very weak. But the girl, smiling, replies that she's fine and woke up feeling much better. She also says she has a new little friend, a slime who's been helping her. It was given to her by our hero since he figured it would benefit the girl. Even so, the girl decides not to show it to her older sister, thinking she might not approve. Though she doesn't know exactly what happened, Kim is happy to see her sister doing better. However, she's curious to know who her protected little sister has made friends with. After sitting down, the girl asks her older sister how she's doing. Kim shows her arm and says that even though she's exhausted herself, she gained something new. Remembering that moment, she says she ended up using way more power than she should have. She also remembers the protagonist helping her, and that it was thanks to him she was able to push beyond her limits. Now that her core is larger, she intends to make good use of it to save humanity. Her little sister is curious, wanting to know what the benefits were, but Kim doesn't say anything. To avoid possible suspicion, she hides her arm under the covers. She was even sweating cold because she couldn't reveal certain things. She didn't want to use that in front of her sister. Returning to the conversation, the girl tells her sister that she's feeling much better now. She also says she's not going to stay miserable because of the past, and that Kim shouldn't blame herself either. Comforted by her little sister's words, Kim calls her by name. She looks at her and wonders when she became so mature. Noticing that her little monster was tired, the young woman says goodbye to her sister to leave. Then Kim smiles and tells her to go safely. As she leaves the room, the girl feels relieved that her sister didn't see anything. Next, she talks to the slime and says she couldn't show it because she didn't know how her sister would react. Back at artillery, we see things in full swing. The small slimes are working non-stop to improve it. They're also building something new. Our hero watches everything, nods, and says it looks great. It was a kind of aircraft and Gang thanks them, saying it's very satisfying. One day, while leaving the government building, he found that ship completely wrecked. The protagonist remembers how some men even mocked him for picking up trash. But now he's happy to have the slimes who turned it brand new. Approaching the machine, he admits he actually has no idea how to pilot it. Still, he couldn't let it go to waste, since the slimes always rebuild things. In fact, its missiles used to be just scrap. Our hero also observes the new state-of-the-art missile. Then it's time to turn on the camera and talk to his followers. Speaking to them, he says he's prepared a surprise, but it's not something obvious. Opening a lit-up door, he says he's about to reveal it. Once inside, he shows off a huge anti-monster missile that was built. The viewers get excited, eager to know every detail. Answering some of the questions, Gang says it will be launched into the sea. Then the ceiling opens, and they begin the countdown. Our hero anxiously waits for launch time, but when he activates the turbines, he didn't expect it to get so hot. Soon, the missile is launched. As it exits the site, it makes a huge boom and a lot of smoke, but the protagonist panics because he hadn't even activated the launch yet. He also realizes the missile was launched directly toward the city. The followers panic too, since it was heading toward the city they live in. Watching the launch, Gang no longer knows what to do. The bomb is heading straight toward the hospital. Still in the air, it starts breaking apart. Each piece is also a bomb, and in the sky, it explodes, causing massive destruction. Several parts of the city are damaged and catch fire. Because of this, our hero starts screaming and sweating non-stop. He just majorly screwed up. People watching the stream comment that he's in serious trouble now. Several areas of the city were in total chaos, especially the hospital. Explosions kept going off, and thick smoke spread everywhere. Mouth agape, the protagonist asks the artillery what they just did. With that screw-up, he was already expecting the worst, so he decided to check the reactions on his channel. To his surprise, when he read the comments, he realized he was coming off as a savior. He's confused, not understanding the reactions at all, so he decides it's best to find out exactly what's going on. 10 minutes before that missile was launched, everything seemed normal. Down a hallway, Yu and his father's secretary walk together, but the young man doesn't want to talk and tells the vice commander to mind her own business. But the girl is set on irritating him and says they'll have to fix his mistakes. Extremely irritated, Yu thinks to himself that one day he wants to get rid of that Dan woman. He keeps walking, now in total silence. Nearby, the floor begins to crack, and strange sounds emerge. Kim, in her room, senses someone's presence and asks if they're spying on her. It was exactly those two who entered, saying she was wasting her talent. Nervous, Kim asks if he really thinks that. The young man recalls the earlier scene and says that if she had been with his group, she'd be perfectly fine. Taking the chance, he insults the members of her team, calling them trash. He also tells her that in the end, she'd always be saved by the cameraman. Her sister, who's a big fan of the protagonist, quickly tries to defend him, but Kim interrupts and says that honestly, she completely understands the situation. In response, the storm guy says he already knew she would understand. Confused, the young woman asks why exactly he came to her instead of going to Gang. When he hears our hero's name, his expression changes completely. Kim keeps talking and says that if he wants talent, he should go after Gang, but the man keeps that strange expression with veins bulging. His vice commander watches the situation and finds his reaction odd. Since she noted something unusual, she'll have to report it to her superior. As the man gets closer to the girl, she says she's a hunter to save people. She continues her speech and says she's very different from him, and their paths are not the same. This makes the guy even angrier. However, suddenly everything starts shaking, drawing everyone's attention. Yu also doesn't understand what it is and asks what's going on. Kim immediately seems to recognize the type of monster causing it. Outside was that same insect again, known as entropy. Looking out the hospital window, they wonder why those creatures are there. Still recovering, Kim breaks the hospital window so she can use her powers. The jealous guy wonders why she's acting like this. Without thinking twice, the girl jumps down to the street. When she gets there, she starts charging her power to take the monster down. She manages to control several at once to push them away. However, the number only keeps growing, and she wonders if she'll be able to handle them all. The young woman was already using the maximum of her power and knew she couldn't last much longer. While giving her best to defeat the ones around her, fire rains down from above. Explosions quickly start going off around her. With that, all the insects nearby are destroyed. Kim is confused, wondering how that happened. From the window, the storm guy seems to have used his ring to attract the missile. At his side, Kim's sister asks him to go down there to help her. Thinking of how it might benefit him later, he decides to help so she'll owe him. So he says he'll head down right away, which makes the little girl really happy. With his ring glowing, he says he'll show the true power of the storm. Down below, amidst the destruction and flames, Yu helps destroy the monsters. Even noticing that he's helping, Kim still needs to do her part. So for those around her, she uses telekinesis to gather them together. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, the younger sister hears a loud noise. One of the monsters had gotten there and was very close to catching the girl. However, it's caught by some sort of roots and held still. The one helping was the secretary, who is also the vice commander. Everyone was giving their all. Kim was already near her limit. She's trying so hard that at one point, the insects start breaking through her shield. Looking at the one right in front of her, she freezes in shock. The city was a mess. You could barely see anything with so many explosions. Smoke was billowing everywhere. The worst part is that, despite all this, more monsters were showing up by the minute. To everyone's salvation, our hero was already on his way with his shovel. He arrives making a statement, helping his friend with the ones surrounding her. Kim is surprised to see that Gang arrived once again at the perfect moment. Despite everything, he was relieved that the missile hadn't hit the city. At that moment, the gods say they'll lend a hand to wipe out those insects. The protagonist, facing so many creatures, hadn't imagined they'd be the real problem. For a while, the young woman is stunned to see him there. She even calls him Cameraman. Our hero walks past her and says he's the one taking care of things now. You've seen this from up in the room. Gets angry, realizing Gang had arrived. Meanwhile, his biggest fan, Kim's sister, gets excited, saying the cameraman had arrived. As he walks, thinking about his plan, Gang gets startled when he looks to the side. People on the balconies of the buildings are thanking him for his help. So our hero realizes this is the perfect chance to boost his popularity. Standing face to face with those insects, he says it's time for each one to meet their end. Then he grips only the shovel and runs straight toward those damn monsters. His movements are precise, cutting at the first opportunity. From the sky, you can see parts of those creatures flying. The jealous man watching everything from the hospital room wonders if a normal person could really do all that. Gang was already used to dealing with situations like this and acted naturally. Using one of his abilities, he struck his weapon on the ground, hitting monsters. After that, his shovel broke through the ground and got stuck there. Taking advantage of the moment, the protagonist called for the help of the gods. The area turned blue, and even the insects noticed it. Our hero's gaze also began to change. His energy was rising. With that, he was able to form large pointed rocks, eliminating the monsters. Several of them were struck by the rocks and left hanging from them. Even Yu was impressed while watching it all. After taking down the monsters that were there, Gang smiled for the audience watching. Meanwhile, some people loved it, and others hated it. Yu was one of the latter, practically exploding with rage over Gang's popularity. After resolving the situation, our hero calmly walked off in another direction. However, he was interrupted when he looked up and saw more of them in the sky. Hearing a certain sound, he turned around to check. That's when he came face to face with a swarm of those creatures, and even wondered if it was real. They were charging at full speed toward the city. Worried, Yu questioned why they were heading that way. Kim's sister also looked desperate upon seeing so many coming toward them. Sensing the danger, Kim called for her sister and started running. With the danger still some distance away, Gang signaled artillery for support. Making the signal, they began launching missiles toward the insects. Everyone there was impressed with yet another solution provided by Gang. A massive explosion lit up the sky as Gang watched from below. At that moment, the storm group arrived and announced they would take control. Leading them was the Haryu, acting all high and mighty. Frowning with rage, he called out the protagonist's name. Our hero waved and said everything was already handled. He also mentioned he wasn't sure if there were any cores left, but his group could check it out. Every word our hero said wounded the ego of that proud rich boy. He was almost losing it from how much he hated Gang. But just then, his commanding officer appeared and placed a hand on his shoulder. The young man jumped and turned, furious, asking what it was. The girl simply told him not to make things worse and said that was the order given. Realizing there was nothing he could do, Yu tried to stay calm. Meanwhile, our hero was recording for his viewers, talking about the missiles. In the background of his recording, Kim could be seen sitting and just watching. She felt the situation was too dangerous. Those bugs weren't supposed to be appearing there. Tired of seeing the protagonist's antics, she wondered where her sister was. As the girl approached, our hero realized she was Kim's sister. The girl had come to help her older sister return to the hospital. Even though she was unwell, Kim only thought about keeping her sister safe. Looking at her, she wondered if one day she'd truly be able to do that. When someone called for the protagonist, he gave them his full attention. It was the two sisters who had come closer, and Kim asked if he would take care of her sister. He didn't understand and didn't know how to respond. At that moment, he confirmed that the girl who was his biggest fan really was Kim's sister. The girl hadn't realized it either, and now that it hit her, she began screaming. While the two were still in shock, Kim explained that her sister would be hospitalized, so she needed someone. She said that with such unsafe places, she would only feel at peace with him watching over her. That reminded everyone of every moment when Gang had saved them all. He had even used his artillery to help take down the insects. Kim said that if she left her little sister with him, she'd be at peace. The young girl even lowered herself and begged him to please accept. The younger sister became emotional, seeing how much her older sister cared for her. After thinking for a moment, Gang finally accepted the mission. Kim was happy and even let out a smile. As he left, Gang said he'd do it only until she recovered. Our hero felt this might be a bit awkward. Maybe because the girl was his fan and had feelings for him. Even the gods were excited for this budding romance.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.